The bullet struck 6 inches from Chen's head, punching through the galley window and embedding in the industrial refrigerator behind him. He dropped the ladle he had been using to stir the evening stew and counted to 3 before lifting his eyes to the window. Through the shattered glass, he could see the main gate 200 meters away, and the 7 Navy SEALs pinned behind concrete barriers as automatic weapons fired toward chunks from their cover. Chief Torrens was shouting into his radio, his words lost in the thunder of incoming rounds. The gate towers were burning. The base alarm screamed uselessly into the twilight, and Marcus Chun, who had not touched a rifle in 8 years, who had enlisted specifically to never touch one again, felt his hand stop shaking for the first time since his sister died. Because he understood with absolute clarity what was about to happen. In approximately 4 minutes, the insurgents firing from the ridgeline would adjust their angle. The SEALs would lose their cover. 7 men would die, while Marcus Chin stood in his galley and stirred soup. His galley assistant, Angela Reyes, appeared beside him, eyes wide with terror. "Petty Officer Chun," she whispered, "we need to get to the bunker." Chun did not move. He was calculating. Distance to gate, 200 meters. Distance to armory, 150. Wind speed, minimal. Available firing positions from second-floor window, 3 optimal angles. Reyes touched his arm, her fingers trembling. "Chun, we have to go." He looked at her, and she stepped back from whatever she saw in his face. "No," he said quietly. "We really do not." 6 hours earlier, Forward Operating Base Nightingale had been experiencing what passed for a normal Tuesday in Kiener Province. Chun had arrived at the galley at 0430, the way he did every morning, unlocking the heavy door and breathing in the familiar smell of industrial cleaners and yesterday's grease. The sun had not yet risen over the mountains that surrounded the base like the walls of a prison, and the only sound were the distant generator hum and the crunch of his boots on gravel. He moved through the kitchen with the practiced efficiency of 8 years doing the same tasks. Lights on, ovens preheated, coffee brewing, rice cooker started. By 0500, the space had transformed from dark cave to bright workspace, and Chun had begun the careful choreography of preparing breakfast for 200 personnel. Reyes arrived at 0515, punctual as always. Morning, Petty Officer Chun. She was 26, from some tiny town in rural Texas she never talked about, and the only person on this base who seemed to actually see him as more than a uniform or a food dispenser. Morning, Angela. Coffee is ready. They worked in comfortable silence for 20 minutes, Chun mixing pancake batter while Reyes prepped the serving line. Then she said, without looking up from the industrial toaster she was cleaning, "The SEALs were talking about you again last night." Chin's hands did not pause in their steady rhythm. What were they saying this time? It was not really a question. He knew what they said. He had heard variations of it for 8 years across 4 different duty stations. "Morrison called you soft. Said any real sailor would have volunteered for individual augmentee duty in Iraq, not hidden in a kitchen." Reyes glanced at him. "I told him to shut his mouth, but you know how he is." She knew exactly how Petty Officer 3rd Class Kyle Morrison was. 24 years old, 2 years as a SEAL, all the arrogance of youth and special operations with none of the wisdom that usually tempered it. Morrison and his teammates viewed support personnel as a different species. Lesser, invisible except when the food was wrong or late. "It does not matter," Chun said, though they both knew it did. At least a little. The breakfast rush began at 0600 sharp. Combat personnel first, then support staff, then contractors and interpreters. Chun worked the serving line, his face neutral as he spooned eggs and bacon onto trays. Most people did not make eye contact. A few grunted thanks. Morrison and 3 other SEALs came through at 0620. "Hey, Chef," Morrison said, loud enough for the entire galley to hear. "This bacon looks a little soft, kind of like the guy cooking it." His teammates laughed. Chun placed 2 strips on Morrison's tray with steady hands. "Cooked to regulation temperature, Petty Officer Morrison." "Same as every day." Morrison leaned closer, his voice dropping to something almost intimate in its cruelty. "You know what I think, Chun? I think you became a cook because you were too scared to do anything that mattered. I think every time you hear gunfire, You probably wet yourself a little. Chun met his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. I think you should move along the line, petty officer. There are people waiting. After Morrison left, Reyes appeared at Chen's elbow. One day, I'm going to punch that smug face. Chen allowed himself the smallest smile. No, you are not. You're going to be a chief someday. And chiefs do not punch petty officers, even ones who deserve it. She bumped his shoulder with hers. Neither do you, apparently. What she did not know, what nobody knew, was that Chen could have broken Morrison's jaw with one precise strike. Could have put him on the ground in under 2 seconds. Could have done it without thinking, muscle memory from years of training that predated his Navy service. But Marcus Chun had made a promise to himself 8 years ago, standing over his sister's grave. He would never again use violence, would never again trust his hands with weapons, would never again believe that his skill with firearms was anything but a curse. So he cooked, he cleaned, he served food to people who despised him for it, and he counted it penance. The day proceeded according to the rigid schedule that governed life on an FOB. Lunch prep at 0900. Lunch service at 11:30. Afternoon inventory and prep at 1400. Dinner service at 17:30. Chen moved through each task with mechanical precision, his mind carefully blank. At 1600, Commander Patricia Vance stopped by the galley. She was 44, pragmatic, and one of the few officers who treated support staff like actual human beings. How are we doing on supplies, Petty Officer Chen? We are good for another week, ma'am. The resupply convoy is scheduled for Thursday. She nodded. Good. And how are you doing, Chun? He looked up from the chicken he was cutting, surprised by the question. Fine, mom. Vance studied him with the same careful attention she probably gave intelligence reports. Because if you need to talk to someone about Morrison's behavior, my door is open. Chen set down his knife. I appreciate that, Commander. But I'm fine. Really. She did not look convinced, but she also did not push. That is what I like about you, Chun. Professional. Steady. The kind of person who makes this whole operation work without anyone noticing. Chen returned to his cutting. Thank you, ma'am. After she left, Reyes said quietly, She's right, you know. You do make it work. Nobody notices that we eat better here than any other FOB I have served at. Nobody notices that you rotate the menu so we do not get bored. Nobody notices that you always save extra portions for the interpreters who work weird hours. Chen shrugged. It is just cooking, Angela. No, she said firmly. It is not just cooking. It is caring. Even when they do not deserve it. Even when they call you soft. At 1700, Chen was checking the temperature on the evening's roast beef when the first unusual thing happened. The power flickered. Just for a second, barely noticeable, then back to normal. Chen frowned. Reyes, did you see that? She looked up from the rice she was fluffing. See what? The lights. They flickered. Reyes glanced around the brightly lit galley. Everything looks fine now. Probably just the generator hiccuping. Chen nodded slowly, but something felt wrong. The generators on FOB Nightingale were maintained obsessively. They did not hiccup. He walked to the window that overlooked the main gate, the same window that in less than an hour would have a bullet hole through it. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting everything in shades of orange and purple. The gate looked normal. Guards in their positions. HESCO barriers properly maintained. The access road empty and peaceful. But Chen had learned long ago to trust his instincts, even when he did not want to. Especially when he did not want to. Something felt wrong. At 1720, the second unusual thing happened. 3 of the perimeter floodlights went dark simultaneously. Chun watched from the window as a work crew jogged toward the lights with replacement bulbs, their movements unhurried. Routine maintenance. Except the bulbs had been replaced 2 days ago during a base-wide inspection. Angela, Chun said slowly, come here. She joined him at the window. What is it? Those lights just went out. Look at the pattern. She looked. I do not see anything weird. They're just fixing the bulbs. Chun pointed. Those 3 lights create a dark zone in the northwest corner, right where someone could approach the wire without being seen from the towers. Reyes went very still. Chun, are you saying someone sabotaged the lights? I am saying it is a strange coincidence. 2 technical problems in 20 minutes at an FOB where nothing breaks. Reyes pulled out her radio. Maybe we should call the TOC. Chen caught her wrist gently. And say what? That I have a bad feeling. That some lights went out. They will think I am paranoid. She met his eyes. Are you paranoid? I do not know, he admitted. Maybe. At 17:45, as the dinner line was forming, the third unusual thing happened. Every vehicle on base tested their engines simultaneously. The coordinated roar was deafening, completely drowning out normal conversation. It lasted exactly 90 seconds, then stopped. Chun and Reyes looked at each other. That, she said, was not normal. That was absolutely not normal, Chun agreed. His heart was beating faster now, adrenaline beginning to flood his system in a way it had not for 8 years. The dinner service proceeded, but Chun could not shake the feeling that something was building. The personnel who came through the line seemed oblivious, joking and complaining about the same things they always did. Morrison made another comment about soft cooks. A young Marine asked if there would be pie. Life on FOB Nightingale continued exactly as it always had, except it did not feel the same. Not to Chun, who had spent 8 years developing the ability to notice tiny details, to see patterns, to read environments the way other people read books. And the environment was screaming at him that something was wrong. At 18:15, Chief Torrens and his SEAL team came through the line. They were in full kit, weapons ready, faces painted. Chun served them without comment. Torrens did not even glance at him, just took his tray and moved on. They were clearly preparing for something, probably a night patrol. Routine. But as they left, Chun noticed something. Torrens kept checking his watch. Not casually, obsessively, every 30 seconds, like he was waiting for something scheduled to happen. Reyes was clearing tables when the first explosion hit. It was distant, probably 2 kilometers away, but loud enough to rattle the windows and send everyone in the galley diving for cover. Chun stood frozen at his station, his body locked in place by memories he had spent 8 years trying to suppress. The base alarm began to wail. Red lights flashed. Over the loudspeaker, Commander Vance's voice crackled. All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The galley emptied in seconds, personnel sprinting toward their assigned bunkers or fighting positions. Reyes grabbed Chen's arm. Come on, we need to get to the bunker. But Chun was staring out the window at the main gate, where Chief Torrens and his team had just reached their defensive position. He watched as they took cover behind the concrete barriers. Watched as the first tracers began arcing out of the mountains toward the base. Watched as the carefully planned defense of FOB Nightingale began to fall apart. The sound of the explosion pulled Chun backward through time, 8 years dissolving in an instant. Suddenly, he was not standing in a galley in Afghanistan. He was 17 years old, standing on a range in Northern California on a perfect spring morning that would destroy everything. The Junior National Championship. 200 competitors from across the country. Chun had been the favorite, the prodigy who had started shooting at age 6 under his father's patient instruction. 3 days of competition, and he had led every event. One final round remained. His sister Lily had been there, 14 years old, all braces and enthusiasm. She had positioned herself downrange with the other spectators, behind the safety barriers, watching her big brother compete for the title everyone knew he would win. Chun could still see her face, bright with pride and excitement. The final round had been going perfectly. Chen's shots had been grouping so tight, the judges kept checking to make sure the equipment was calibrated correctly. He had been in the zone, that magical state where breathing slowed and the world narrowed to nothing but crosshairs and target, and the perfect moment between heartbeats. Then the barrier had failed. Not catastrophically, not obviously. Just a single bolt that had been wearing down for months, weakened by weather and time and the universe's casual cruelty. It had given way at the exact moment a gust of wind hit the temporary structure. Lily had stumbled forward. Just 3 steps, just enough to cross the line. Chun had already been squeezing the trigger, his body committed to the shot with the muscle memory of 11 years of training. There had been no time to stop, no time to adjust. The physics had already been decided. The bullet had missed her. That was important to remember, even though it did not help. Chen's shot had been perfect, had struck the target dead center, had won in the championship he immediately renounced. But the competitor next to him, a nervous kid from Oregon who had been struggling all day, had jerked his trigger at the same moment. That bullet had not missed. Chen had watched his sister fall, had heard his mother scream, had stood paralyzed on the firing line while chaos erupted around him. The Oregon kid had been blameless, cleared immediately. The barrier failure had been ruled an accident. Nobody had been charged with anything. But Chun had made a promise that day, kneeling beside Lily's hospital bed as she died from a wound that had severed her femoral artery. He would never touch a rifle again, would never trust his skills, would never believe that his talent was anything but a gateway to tragedy. The explosion at FOB Nightingale shook Chun back to the present. Reyes was pulling at his arm, shouting his name. Chun, snap out of it. We have to move. He blinked, focusing on her face. Her fear was real. The danger was immediate. This was not California. This was not 8 years ago. Another explosion, closer this time. The windows rattled. Smoke began drifting across the compound. Chen forced his mind to work, forced himself to think tactically the way his father had taught him before everything fell apart. Reyes, he said, his voice steadier than he felt, listen to me. That first explosion was a diversion. Too far out, probably hit nothing important. They're trying to pull our defenders toward the east perimeter. She stared at him. How do you know that? Because it is what I would do if I wanted to attack this base. The radio on the wall crackled to life. All personnel, this is TOC. Multiple contacts on east perimeter. QRF responding. Non-essential personnel remain in bunkers. Chun grabbed the radio. Commander Vance, this is Petty Officer Chun in the galley. Ma'am, I think the east contact is a feint. There was a pause, then Vance's voice, tight with stress. Chun, get to your bunker. Now, with respect, ma'am, someone needs to watch the northwest approach. Those lights that went out earlier, the power flicker, I think someone has been preparing a breach point. Another pause, longer this time. Then, Chun, I appreciate your initiative, but you are a cook. Get to the bunker and let the professionals handle this. The radio went dead. Reyes pulled at his arm again. She is right, Chun. We are not fighters. We need to get underground. Chun looked out the window toward the main gate. Chief Torrens and his SEAL team were moving toward the east perimeter, following the sound of gunfire. The gate was being left with minimal security, just 2 Marines who looked barely old enough to vote. Everything in Chen's body was screaming at him to run, to hide, to honor the promise he had made to never again be part of violence. But something deeper, something that sounded like his father's voice and his sister's laugh, was telling him that running was not always the same as surviving. He turned to Reyes. Angela, I need you to trust me. Go to the bunker. Stay safe. But I have to stay here. Her eyes went wide. What? No. Chun, you'll get court-martialed or killed or both. He managed a small smile. Probably. But if I am right about that northwest approach, people are going to die if someone is not watching. You cannot watch, she said desperately. You do not have a weapon. You're not trained for this. Chun looked at her for a long moment, weighing 8 years of silence against the lives of people who had never shown him anything but contempt. Then he said quietly, I am more trained than you know. Something in his voice made her stop pulling at him. She studied his face, seeing something she had never seen before. Who are you, Chun? Really? He shook his head. Someone who made a terrible mistake a long time ago and has been running from it ever since. But I think I'm done running. A massive explosion rocked the base, much closer than the others. The lights in the galley flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. The radio erupted with panicked voices. TOC, this is Gate Guard. We have breach at northwest corner. Multiple hostiles. Requesting immediate backup. Chun and Reyes locked eyes. You were right, she whispered. He was already moving toward the storage closet, where he knew the base kept emergency weapons for galley security. One rifle, ancient M16, probably had not been fired in years. He grabbed it, checked the magazine. 20 rounds. Reyes followed him. If you're staying, I am staying. He rounded on her. Absolutely not. Angela, you have a family back home. Parents who love you. A future. I did not get to risk that. Her jaw set in the stubborn way he had seen 100 times when she disagreed with his menu choices. Then you better make sure we both survive, because I am not leaving you alone. More gunfire now, sustained bursts that echoed across the compound. Chun moved to the second-floor window, the one that overlooked the main gate and the northwest approach. What he saw made his blood freeze. At least 30 insurgents were pouring through a gap in the wire that had definitely not been there an hour ago. They moved with military precision, suppressing fire, keeping the 2 gate guards pinned. In the distance, Chun could see Chief Torrens and his SEALs running back toward the gate, but they were 200 meters away and taking fire from the east. The insurgents were going to reach the gate before the SEALs. They were going to breach the interior of the base. And once they did, the galley would be one of their first targets, elevated position with clear lines of sight. Chun raised a rifle to his shoulder. It felt foreign and familiar at the same time, like greeting an old friend you had betrayed. His hands remembered the grip. His body remembered the stance. 8 years of deliberately avoiding this exact moment. And here it was anyway. Reyes crouched beside him, her own service pistol drawn. "Chun," she said softly, "whatever you are about to do, I trust you." He did not take his eyes off the approaching insurgents. "You should not. I am probably about to make everything worse." But even as he said it, his breathing was slowing. His heart rate was dropping. The old training was taking over, the thousands of hours his father had invested in teaching him to read wind and distance and angles. The junior national champion, the prodigy, the boy who had walked away from everything after one terrible accident. An insurgent raised his rifle toward the gate guards. Chen's finger moved to the trigger. Lily's face flashed through his mind. His promise, his penance, his deliberate choice to be harmless. Then he thought about Morrison's contempt, Vance's dismissal, Torrens never even seeing him, all these people who had treated him like he did not matter, who had made him feel invisible, who needed someone to save them whether they knew it or not. Chen exhaled slowly, his crosshairs settling on the insurgent's center mass. "Forgive me, Lily," he whispered. Then he squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked. The insurgent dropped. And Marcus Chun, who had not fired a weapon in 8 years, felt the wall he had built around himself begin to crumble. Reyes gasped beside him. "Holy God, Chun, that was 300 meters. How did you?" There was no time to answer. The other insurgents had located his position. Round began impacting the galley wall, chewing through plaster and wood. Chun worked the rifle methodically, each shot deliberate and precise. 2 more insurgents down. 3. The enemy fire was intensifying, but Chen's hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. Everything he had suppressed for 8 years was flooding back, and it felt like drowning and flying at the same time. Reyes was on a radio. "TOC, this is Petty Officer Reyes in the galley. We have eyes on Northwest Breach. We are engaging." There was shocked silence, then Vance's voice. "Reyes, who is we?" "Petty Officer Chun is providing suppressing fire, ma'am. He has dropped 5 hostiles." Another pause. Chun kept firing. 6, 7. The old M16 was jamming every 3rd round, but he cleared it automatically, muscle memory overriding conscious thought. Then Vance again, her voice sharp with disbelief. "Chun? The cook? How is he even?" "Ma'am," Reyes interrupted, "I do not know how, but he is keeping them off the gate. The SEALs are almost in position." Chun could see Torrens now, running full sprint with his team. The chief's face was visible even at this distance, twisted with rage and determination. The insurgents saw them too, tried to redirect fire, but Chun kept them pinned. 8 down. 9. The rifle clicked empty. Chun dropped the magazine, reached for the single spare he had grabbed. 20 more rounds. 40 total against 30-plus hostiles. The math was brutal and simple. But then the SEALs reached the gate, and suddenly the math changed. Torrens and his team were trained killers, and they were very angry about being drawn away from the real attack. The insurgents began to fall back, their coordinated assault dissolving into chaos. Chun lowered his rifle, his hands beginning to shake now that the immediate crisis had passed. Reyes was staring at him, like he had grown a second head. "Chun," she said slowly, "what the hell just happened? Who are you?" Before he could answer, the radio crackled. "Chun, this is Commander Vance. Hold your position. We are sending someone to debrief you." And Chun, her voice was strange, caught between shock and something else. "Good shooting." Chun set the rifle down carefully, his promise to Lily broken, his 8 years of penance shattered. He had sworn never to use violence again, had built his entire life around that oath. And in less than 5 minutes, he had killed 9 people to save strangers who despised him. Reyes put her hand on his shoulder. "Hey, you did the right thing." Chun shook his head. "I do not know what the right thing is anymore, Angela. I just know that I cannot watch them die." The firefight at the gate lasted another 7 minutes. Chun watched from his window as Chief Torrens and his team systematically eliminated the remaining insurgents who had not retreated. The SEALs moved with brutal efficiency, each man covering his teammates, their weapons fire-precise and devastating. This was what they trained for, what they lived for, what made them special. And they had no idea that a cook with an ancient rifle had kept them alive long enough to reach the fight. Reyes had moved away from the window, her back pressed against the wall, breathing hard. Chun stayed in position, scanning the perimeter for additional threats. His training was fully engaged now, the careful discipline his father had instilled overriding everything else. Scan, assess, prioritize. Never assume the fight is over until you are certain. The radio crackled constantly with status reports. East perimeter secure. 2 hostiles Kia, no friendly casualties. Northwest breach contained 14 hostiles Kia, 3 captured. Galta secured, 11 hostiles Koya. Chun did simple math. His 9 kills represented nearly a third of the enemy casualties. 9 people dead by his hand after 8 years of refusing to even touch a weapon. His hands had stopped shaking. That was almost worse than if they had continued. It suggested that some part of him had been waiting for this, that the champion shooter had never really gone away, had just been sleeping, waiting for permission to wake up. Footsteps on the stairs. Heavy boots, multiple people. Chun set the rifle down carefully and stepped away from it, hands visible. He had no idea what was about to happen, but he knew that having a weapon in hand when combat personnel arrived was a bad choice. The door slammed open. Chief Torrens came through first, his face still painted, his weapon ready. 3 other SEALs followed, fanning out to secure the room with automatic precision. Their eyes swept across Chun and Reyes, dismissing them, searching for real threats. Torrens keyed his radio. Galley secure. 2 support personnel present. No hostiles. Then he turned to Chun, and for the first time in months they had been on the same base, really looked at him. "You Chun?" "Yes, Chief." Torrens moved closer, his eyes hard. "You're the one who called in the northwest approach." Chun nodded. "I noticed some anomalies earlier in the evening. The power flicker, the lights, the vehicle tests. It seemed coordinated." One of the other SEALs, a lean man with sergeant stripes, laughed without humor. "Anomalies. Listen to the cook, talking like he is in intelligence." Torrens held up a hand, silencing him. He kept his eyes on Chun. "Commander Vance says you engaged hostiles from his position. That true?" Chun gestured toward the window. "Yes, Chief. I had line of sight to the breach point. The gate guards were pinned. Your team was still 200 meters out. Someone needed to provide suppression." Torrens walked to the window, looked out at the killing field below. "How many?" 9 confirmed, Chun said quietly. "Possibly 10, but I cannot verify the last one." The SEALs exchanged glances. Torrens turned back, his expression unreadable. 9 confirmed kills. With that, he pointed the old M16. Chun nodded. "It is what was available." Torrens picked up the rifle, checked the chamber, examined the worn mechanism. "This thing should not even fire. The barrel is probably worn smooth." "It jammed frequently," Chun acknowledged. "Every 3rd or 4th round. I had to clear it manually each time." Another SEAL, younger, with corporal insignia, stepped forward. "Let me get this straight. You're a cook. You grabbed a rifle that barely works. And you dropped 9 insurgents at what? 300 meters? In the dark?" During your first combat engagement? Chen met his eyes. I did what needed to be done, Corporal. The young SEAL shook his head slowly. That is not luck, man. That is skill. What are you doing in a galley? Before Chen could answer, Commander Vance arrived with her security detail. The galley suddenly felt very crowded. She looked at Chun with an expression he could not quite read. Petty Officer Chun. Mung. Her eyes moved to the rifle, to the window, to the scene outside. Walk me through it. Chun kept his report clinical and precise. Noticed 3 anomalies between 1600 and 1700 hours, suggesting possible enemy reconnaissance. First explosion at 1815 appeared to be diversionary, based on location and timing. Anticipated actual assault would target northwest approach due to earlier lighting sabotage. Maintained observation position. Engage hostiles when they breach perimeter at 1842. Provided suppressing fire until SEAL team reached effective range. Vance listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "You anticipated their strategy." Chun hesitated. "I made an educated guess, ma'am." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. An educated guess that saved lives. Where did a culinary specialist learn to make tactical assessments? The question hung in the air. Every person in that galley was waiting for his answer. Chun could feel the weight of 8 years of silence pressing down on him. He could maintain a lie, could claim beginner's luck, could retreat back into being invisible. But the rifle was on the table. The bodies were outside. The truth was already written in blood. Before I enlisted, Chun said carefully, I had some experience with competitive shooting. Torrens laughed, a sharp bark of sound. Competitive shooting. Kid, competitive shooting does not prepare you for combat. It does not teach you to read enemy tactics. It definitely does not turn you into someone who drops 9 hostiles in 7 minutes with a broken rifle. Chun remained silent. Vance studied him with the same analytical intensity she probably brought to classified briefings. Petty Officer Chun, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need a direct answer. What training do you have that is not in your service record? The moment stretched. Chun thought about his father, a man who had served 20 years in the Marines before becoming a competitive shooting coach. Thought about the countless hours on ranges across California. Thought about the national championship he had won and immediately abandoned. Thought about Lily. My father was a Marine Scout sniper, Chun said quietly. He trained me from age 6. I competed nationally for 11 years. I held junior records in 3 disciplines. Then there was an accident at a competition. My sister died. I enlisted a month later and requested culinary specialty specifically to avoid weapons. The galley went completely silent. Even the distant sounds of base activity seemed to fade. Reyes was staring at him with her mouth open. The SEALs looked stunned. Vance broke the silence. Your sister died at a shooting competition. Yes, ma'am. And you have not touched a rifle since. Until tonight. Yes, ma'am. Torrens set down the rifle like it might explode. Jesus Christ, Sheng. You have been here for 3 months. 3 months of serving me food. And you never mentioned you could shoot like that? Chun met his eyes. With respect, Chief, you never asked. And I never wanted to shoot again. Why not? One of the SEALs asked. If you're that good, why hide it? Because being good got my sister killed, Chun said, his voice harder than he intended. Because I made a promise to myself that I would never be part of violence again. Because for 8 years, I have been trying to pretend that part of me does not exist. And tonight, Vance said softly, you broke that promise. Chun nodded. Yes, ma'am. Because watching people die when I could prevent it seemed worse than breaking a promise to myself. Torrens stepped closer. Those 9 insurgents you dropped. That was not beginner's luck. That was not adrenaline. That was skill. Professional level skill. Chun did not respond. What else can you do? Torrens pressed. Can you range targets? Call windage? Work at distance? All of it, Chun admitted. My father made sure I could compete at any level. Long-range precision, mid-range practical, close quarters. I was being recruited by the Olympic shooting team when Lily died. The young corporal whistled low. Olympic level. And you have been making pancakes. Man, that is the biggest waste of talent I have ever seen. It was not a waste, Chun said firmly. It was a choice. It was penance. It was necessary. Vance pulled out her radio. TOC, this is actual. I need a perimeter sweep for any additional hostiles. Also need casualty assessment and damage report. Stand by for further orders. She looked at Chun. Petty officer, you are confined to this building until I decide what to do with you. Unauthorized personnel engaging in combat operations is a serious violation of protocol. Chun straightened. I understand, ma'am. I accept full responsibility. Torrens made a disgusted sound. Protocol. Commander, with respect, protocol did not save my team tonight. Chun did. Vance gave him a hard look. Chief, I appreciate your input, but I'm still in command of this base. Torrens did not back down. Yes, ma'am, you are. And as the senior SEAL present, I am telling you that we need that skill. This attack was coordinated. Professional. They knew our layout, our schedules, our response patterns. This was not some random Taliban group. This was planned by someone with training. Which means they will be back, another SEAL added. They lost too many people tonight to just walk away. They will want revenge. And next time they will know about our patterns because they watched how we responded tonight. Vance was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to Chun. If they come back, will you fight? Chun looked at the rifle on the table. At the window, overlooking the killing ground. At Reyes, who was watching him with something like awe. At the SEALs who had spent 3 months treating him like furniture. He thought about his promise to Lily. About 8 years of running from who he was. About the fact that his skills existed whether he used them or not. About the simple truth that people would die if he continued to hide. If they come back, Chun said slowly, I will do what needs to be done. Just like I did tonight. Vance nodded. That is not quite the answer I wanted, but I suspect it is the only one you can give. She turned to Torrens. Chief, your team will maintain gate security. Rotate in 4-hour shifts. I want eyes on that northwest approach at all times. And Chun, Torrens asked. Vance looked at the cook, who was not just a cook. Petty Officer Chun will return to galley operations. For now. But Chun, her voice became steel. If I authorize you for combat operations, you follow orders. You do not go rogue. You do not make tactical decisions without clearance. Are we clear? Crystal clear, ma'am. Good. Now get some rest. All of you. I have a feeling tomorrow is going to be very interesting. The SEALs filed out, but Torrens paused at the door. Chun. Yes, Chief? That shooting tonight. That was some of the finest precision work I have seen outside of sniper school. Thank you, Chief. Torrens almost smiled. I still think you are wasting your talent making pancakes. But I'm starting to understand why you made that choice. Chun did not respond. What else could he say? After everyone left, Reyes and Chun stood in the damaged galley, surrounded by broken glass and bullet holes. She finally said, Olympic level, junior national champion, scout sniper father. Any other secrets you want to share? Chun looked at his hands. Steady hands. Skilled hands. Dangerous hands. No more secrets, Angela. Not after tonight. Good, she said, because I think the real Marcus Chun just showed up, and I think he is going to be needed before this is over. Chun did not sleep that night. He sat in the galley's small office, staring at his hands in the dim emergency lighting. These hands that had held his sister while she died. These hands that had stirred soup for 3 months. These hands that had killed 9 people in 7 minutes. Reyes had tried to get him to rest, but eventually she had given up and simply sat with him in silence. Around 0200, she finally spoke. You know it was not your fault, right? Your sister. She did not look up. The competitor next to me pulled the trigger. But I was there. I was part of the system that put us all in that position. If I had never started shooting, if I had never gotten so good that competitions mattered, she would not have been there that day. That is not how causation works, Reyes said gently. You did not fail the safety barrier. You did not make that kid jerk his trigger. You were 17 years old doing something you loved, and something terrible happened. That does not make it your fault. Chun finally looked at her. Do you know what my last words to Lily were that morning? She shook her head. I told her to stop being so loud. She was excited, cheering for me during warm-ups, and I told her she was embarrassing me. Those are my last words to my baby sister. Stop being so loud. Reyes reached across the desk and took his hand. And I bet she knew you love her anyway. I bet she was proud of you until the very end. I bet if she could see you tonight, she would be proud of what you did. How can you say that? Chen asked, his voice breaking slightly. I killed people, Angela. I broke my promise to her. I became exactly what I swore I would never be again. You saved people, Reyes corrected firmly. You saved those gate guards. You saved Chief Torrens and his team. You probably saved me, because if those insurgents had gotten past the gate, the galley would have been one of their first targets. That is not the same as what happened to your sister. Not even close. Before Chen could respond, the office door opened. Torrens stood there, now in standard fatigues, his face paint removed. His expression was unreadable. Chun, Chief, we need to talk. Just you and me. Reyes stood. I will give you privacy. She squeezed Chen's shoulder as she passed. Remember what I said. After she left, Torrens closed the door and sat down across from Chun. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Finally, Torrens said, I owe you an apology. Chun blinked in surprise. Chief, you do not owe me anything. Yeah, Torrens said heavily, I do. I've been on this base for 4 months. 4 months of you serving me food 3 times a day, and I never once saw you. Not really. You were just the cook. Support staff. Invisible. You were not obligated to see me, Chen said quietly. Maybe not, Torrens agreed. But that does not make it right. Tonight, when my team was pinned, when I thought we might not make it back to the gate in time, someone I had dismissed as irrelevant saved our lives. That is a hard lesson to learn. Chen did not know what to say. Torrens continued. I talked to some people after the debrief. Made some calls. Found out some interesting things about your father. Gunnery Sergeant Richard Chun, retired. 3 deployments to Iraq. Silver Star recipient. One of the finest scouts snipers the Corps ever produced. My father was a good Marine, Chen acknowledged. He was also a hell of a teacher, Torrens said. I found video of you at the Junior Nationals. You were 17, and you shot like you had been doing it for 50 years. Commentators were calling you the next Olympic champion. You had sponsors lined up. A future. Then I stopped, Chen said flatly. Because that future cost too much. Torrens leaned forward. I read about the accident. About your sister. I'm sorry, Chun. That should never have happened. And I understand why you walked away. But, Chun said, hearing the word coming. But, Torrens continued, you did not actually walk away. You just pretended to. Those skills are still there. That training is still there. Tonight proved it. You cannot unlearn what your father taught you. I can choose not to use it, Chen said. Can you though, Torrens asked. Because when it mattered, when lives were on the line, you used it anyway. You made the choice. You picked up the rifle. You broke your promise. Chun felt anger flare. What is your point, Chief? My point, Torrens said calmly, is that you're going to have to make peace with who you really are. Because that attack tonight was not random. It was too coordinated, too well planned. Intelligence thinks it was led by a former Afghan national police officer named Habib Zarif. Chun frowned. I have not heard that name. You would not have, Torrens said. He keeps a low profile, but he is smart, he is patient, and he is very good at what he does. He lost nearly half his force tonight, which means 2 things. 1, he's going to be pissed. 2, he's going to come back harder. How do you know he will come back at all? Chen asked. Because men like Zarif do not accept defeat, Torrens said. They adapt and return. And when he comes back, we're going to need every advantage we can get, including you. I'm not a SEAL, Chief. I'm not asking you to be, Torrens said. I'm asking you to do what you did tonight. Watch. Assess. Shoot when needed. Be the person your father trained you to be. My father trained me to compete, not to kill. Your father trained you to be excellent, Torrens corrected. Competition was just the vehicle. But excellence is excellence, whether it is on a range or in combat. The fundamentals do not change. Chen stood and walked to the window. The base was still on high alert, floodlights blazing, patrols moving in tight patterns. Everything changes, Chief. I am not the same person I was before Lily died. Good, Torrens said, because that person was a kid. You're a man now. A man who has to decide if he's going to keep running from his past or accept that maybe, just maybe, the skills he's been so afraid of are exactly what his brothers in arms need to survive. Brothers in arms, Chen repeated softly. 3 months ago, you did not even know my name. 3 months ago, I was an arrogant asshole who thought support staff did not matter, Torrens said bluntly. Tonight taught me different. So I am asking, as someone who just learned a very hard lesson about judging people, will you help us if Zarif comes back? Chun turned from the window. What exactly are you asking me to do? I am asking you to be our eyes, Torrance said. You see things other people miss. You prove that with the lights and the power. If you had not been paying attention, we would have been completely blindsided. Next time, I want you looking, actively looking. And if you see something, I want you to trust yourself enough to act on it. And if I see something that requires shooting, if it requires shooting and you have a clear shot and lives are at risk, then yes, Torrance said. I'm asking you to shoot. I cannot order you to do it because you are not in my chain of command. But I am asking, as someone who owes you his life. Shin sat back down heavily. This is not what I wanted, Chief. I know, Torrance said quietly, but it is what we have. The universe does not care what we want. It only cares what we do when the moment comes. You already proved you will do the right thing when it matters. I'm just asking you to be ready to do it again. There was a knock on the door. A young Marine stuck his head in. Chief, Commander Vance wants to see you in the TOC. Something about intercepted radio traffic. Torrance stood. On my way. He looked at Chun. Think about what I said. We brief at 0600 on the new security posture. I would like you there. I'm a cook, Chief. You're a lot of things, Chun, Torrance said. Cook just happens to be your job title. He left, and Chun was alone with his thoughts again. At 0430, Chun started preparing breakfast out of habit. Reyes joined him at 0515, and they worked in silence. But it was a different silence than before. She knew who he really was now. The SEALs knew. Commander Vance knew. The secret he had kept for 8 years was gone. At 0545, Morrison came through early, alone this time. He stopped at the serving line and looked at Chun for a long moment. Then he said, quietly enough that no one else could hear, I was wrong about you. I am sorry. Chun looked up, surprised. Morrison continued, Chief told us what you did. 9 kills with a broken rifle. You saved our lives. I should not have called you soft. You're anything but. I appreciate that, Chun said carefully. Morrison nodded. For what it is worth, if you ever want to try out for a different rating, I think you would make one hell of an operator. He took his tray and left before Chun could respond. Reyes appeared at Chin's elbow. Did Morrison just apologize to you? Chin nodded slowly. I think the world might be ending, Angela. She laughed. Or maybe people are finally seeing you clearly. Maybe that is the same thing, Chin said. At 0600, Chun found himself in the TOC for the first time in his 3 months on base. Commander Vance stood at the center, surrounded by screens showing satellite feeds and base schematics. Torrance and his team were there. So were the Marine Security Force leaders and the intelligence officer. Vance looked up as Chun entered. Petty Officer Chun, thank you for joining us. She gestured to a screen showing thermal imagery. We intercepted radio traffic 2 hours ago. Farsi, which we translated. Someone, presumably Zarif, was reporting to a higher authority about tonight's failed attack. What did he say? Torrance asked. He said he underestimated our defensive capabilities, Vance replied. That he did not account for what he called an unexpected variable. He lost significant personnel, but gained valuable intelligence. And he promised his superiors that the next assault would be successful. When Chen heard himself ask, intelligence estimates 48 to 72 hours, the intelligence officer said. They need time to regroup and bring in reinforcements. But they will come, and they will come prepared for what they face tonight. Vance looked directly at Chun, which is why I am officially authorizing Petty Officer Chun for defensive combat operations. Limited scope, under Chief Torrance supervision, for the duration of this elevated threat level. Chun, do you accept this assignment? Chun thought about his promise. About Lily. About 8 years of running. About the fact that running had not changed anything. The skills were still there. The danger was still real. And people would die if he continued to hide. I accept, ma'am. Good, Vance said. Chief Torrance will brief you on your specific responsibilities. Dismissed. As Chun turned to leave, Vance added, and Chun, Mom, thank you for last night. You saved lives. I know it cost you something personally, but it mattered. Chun nodded, not trusting his voice. Outside the TOC, Torrance caught up with him. 0800, Chun, meet me at the armory. We're going to get you a weapon that actually works. and then we are going to prepare for whatever Zara throws at us next. The armory at FOB Nightingale was a concrete bunker buried halfway into the earth, designed to survive anything short of a direct artillery hit. Chen had walked past it hundreds of times in 3 months and never once gone inside. Now he stood at the entrance with Chief Torrens, about to cross another line he had sworn never to cross. Inside, the armory sergeant, a grizzled staff sergeant named Williams, looked up from his inventory sheet. "Chief, what can I do for you?" Torrens gestured to Chun. "Staff Sergeant Williams, this is Petty Officer Chun. Commander Vance has authorized him for defensive operations. We need to get him properly equipped." Williams looked Chun up and down, clearly skeptical. "The cook?" "Yeah," Torrens said. "The cook who dropped 9 insurgents last night with a broken M16. Williams whistled low. "Heard about that. Thought it was exaggerated." "It was not," Torrens said flatly. "So let us get him something that will not jam every third round." Williams led them deeper into the armory, past racks of rifles and crates of ammunition. "What is your preferred platform?" he asked Chun. Chun hesitated. "It has been 8 years since I trained seriously, but I qualified expert on M110, M24, and civilian equivalents. Long-range precision was my specialty." Williams stopped walking. "You qualified expert on the M110. Chun nodded. "My father was a scout sniper. He made sure I knew the systems." Williams exchanged a glance with Torrens. "Chief, we have 2 M110s on base. Both are assigned to your team." "I know," Torrens said. "Give him one of them." "But Chief," Williams protested, "those are restricted weapons. I need proper authorization." "You just heard Commander Vance authorized him," Torrens said. "That is good enough for me. If it is not good enough for you, we can wake her up and ask." Williams sighed. "No need to disturb the commander. Let me get the paperwork." While Williams retrieved the forms, Torrens turned to Chun. "You good with the M110? Chun felt his pulse quicken despite himself. "Yes, Chief. I trained extensively on the SAS platform. My father considered it the best semi-automatic precision rifle in the military inventory." "It is," Torrens agreed, "which is why I want you to have one. Last night you proved you can shoot. Today we find out if you can shoot with proper equipment." Williams returned with a hard case and a stack of forms. Chun signed where indicated, each signature feeling like another step away from the promise he had made to Lily. The M110 was beautiful in the way that finely crafted tools are beautiful. Efficient, purposeful, deadly. Chen's hands remembered the weight, the balance, the feel of it. Williams also provided 10 loaded magazines, a cleaning kit, and a scope already zeroed to 500 meters. "We will need to verify the zero," Chun said automatically. Then he caught himself. "Sorry. Old habits." "Do not apologize," Torrens said. "That is exactly the kind of thinking we need. We will hit the range after breakfast service. For now, familiarize yourself with the weapon. Make sure everything feels right." Chun broke down the rifle with practiced efficiency, checking each component. His hands moved with muscle memory that 8 years had not erased. Williams watched with professional appreciation. "You have done that before." "A few times," Chun admitted. "My father made me field strip and reassemble every weapon system I trained on. Blindfolded, in the dark, under time pressure." "Sounds like my kind of instructor," Williams said. "He was thorough," Chun said quietly. "He believed that if you're going to use a weapon, you needed to know it completely. Understand every piece. Respect what it could do." "Smart man," Torrens said. "Did he teach you anything else we should know about?" Chun reassembled the rifle, his movements smooth and automatic. "He taught me to read wind, calculate distance without a rangefinder, adjust for temperature, humidity, altitude. He taught me that shooting is not about the weapon. It is about the shooter's mind." "And what did his mind teach you about combat shooting versus competition?" Torrens asked. Chun looked up. "He taught me that in competition, you have time to breathe, to settle, to make the perfect shot. In combat, you have to be fast and accurate simultaneously. He taught me to shoot between heartbeats, to trust my training when my conscious mind is screaming." "Which is what you did last night," Torrens observed. Chun nodded. "Last night, I stopped thinking and let the training take over. It It was the only way to break through 8 years of deliberately not doing this. Good, Torrance said, because when Zarif comes back, you're not going to have time to think. You're going to need to trust that training again. They left the armory with Chun carrying the rifle case. The base was coming alive with morning activity. Marines running PT. Vehicles moving to patrol positions. The normal rhythm of military life reasserting itself after the chaos of the night before. But nothing felt normal to Chun. He had spent 3 months being invisible, being the cook, being the man who had walked away for violence. Now he was walking across the compound with a precision rifle, and people were staring. Some with respect, some with curiosity, some with the same dismissive contempt they had always shown. At 0730, Chin served breakfast with a rifle case locked in the galley office. Reyes worked beside him, occasionally glancing at the office door. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I do not know yet," Chin admitted. "This feels like stepping off a cliff." "Maybe you are not falling," she said. "Maybe you are finally landing." Morrison came through the line with his team. He nodded to Chun with something approaching respect. "Morning, Petty Officer Chun." "Morning," Chun replied, still adjusting to the change. Morrison hesitated, then said, "Heard you got issued an M110. That is a serious piece of equipment." "I will try to do it justice," Chun said. After breakfast service, Torrance collected Chun and drove them to the firing range at the edge of the base. It was a simple setup, just a berm and target stands at various distances. Torrance set up targets at 300, 500, and 700 meters. "Show me what you can do," he said simply. Chun loaded a magazine, chambered a round, and moved into position. The familiar weight of the rifle. The scope's clear glass. The target downrange. For a moment he was 17 again, standing on a range in California with his whole future ahead of him. Then he remembered why he had walked away from that future. Remembered Lily's face. Remembered his promise. His hands began to shake. "Chief," Chin said, his voice tight. "I do not know if I can do this." Torrance moved beside him. "You already did it last night. 9 times. This is different," Chin said. "Last night was survival. This is practice. This is choosing to be this person again." Torrance was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Chun, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to hear it. Your sister's death was not your fault. The skill you have is not evil. It is just a tool. What matters is how you use it. Last night, you used it to save lives. That is not the same as what happened to your sister." "How do you know that?" Chin asked, his voice breaking. "How do you know I will not make another mistake? Get someone else killed because I think I am good enough. Because I have watched men die for mistakes," Torrance said quietly. "I have made mistakes that cost lives. And I can tell you, with absolute certainty, that what happened to your sister was not a mistake you made. It was a tragedy. A terrible, random tragedy. But it was not your fault." Chin closed his eyes, breathed, tried to find the calm center his father had taught him to locate. Torrance continued, "Your father trained you to be excellent. Your sister supported you because she believed in you. The question is not whether you are good enough. The question is whether you're going to honor their faith in you by using what you have to protect people or waste it by continuing to punish yourself for something you did not do." Chin opened his eyes. The target was clear in his scope. 700 meters. A difficult shot even with perfect equipment. He controlled his breathing, found the space between heartbeats, squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked. Downrange, the target showed a perfect center mass hit. Chun worked the bolt, fired again. Another center mass hit. 5 more shots, 5 more hits. The magazine empty, his hands steady, his mind quiet for the first time in 8 years. Torrance lowered his binoculars. 7 for 7 at 700 meters. Wind was gusting to 15 knots. "You compensated perfectly." Chin set down the rifle carefully. "My father would say it was adequate." Torrance laughed. "Your father sounds like my old instructor. Nothing was ever good enough. Kept us sharp." Chin looked at his hands. They were not shaking anymore. The guilt was still there, would probably always be there. But something else was there too. Purpose maybe, or acceptance, or just a simple understanding that his skills existed whether he wanted them to or not, and that hiding them did not honor Lily's memory any more than using them did. Chief, Chin said slowly, if Zarif comes back, where do you want me? Torrens pulled out a tablet with the base schematic. The galley gives you elevation and line of sight to the northwest approach and the main gate. I want you there. Secondary position on the command building roof if the galley is compromised. Your job is to watch and to shoot threats before they reach our defensive positions. That is a lot of responsibility for someone who is not a trained operator. You are trained, Torrens corrected, just not by the military. Your father trained you. That is good enough for me. What if I freeze? Chin asked. What if the moment comes and I cannot pull the trigger? Then people die, Torrens said bluntly. But I do not think you will freeze. I think when it matters, you will do what needs to be done, just like you did last night. They drove back to the main compound in silence. Chin spent the afternoon in the galley, preparing dinner while thinking about trajectories and windage and kill zones. The rifle case sat in the office, a constant reminder that he had made his choice. At 1800, the intelligence officer found Chun in the kitchen. Petty officer, we just intercepted new radio traffic. Zarif is moving. He has reinforcements coming from Pakistan. Estimated force size is 70 to 80 personnel. When Chun asked, his stomach tightening. Tomorrow night. Maybe sooner. They're moving faster than we expected. Chun looked out the window at the gate, at the mountains beyond, at the approaches where Zarif's men would come. Understood, he said. Thank you for the update. The intelligence officer left, and Chun was alone with the knowledge that in less than 24 hours, he would have to prove whether Chief Torrens' faith in him was justified or misplaced. Reyes found him standing at the window. Tomorrow, she said quietly. It was not a question. Tomorrow, Chin confirmed. Are you ready? He thought about his father's training, about Lily's faith in him, about the promise he had made and the promise he was about to break again. I have to be, he said, because ready or not, they are coming. The attack came at dusk, just as intelligence had predicted. Chun was in his position on the galley's second floor, the M110 resting on a sandbag barrier that had been hastily constructed that morning. Reyes was beside him with a radio, serving as his spotter and communication link to the TOC. The first sign was the birds. Chin noticed them lifting from the tree line to the northwest, disturbed by something moving below. He keyed his radio. TOC, this is Overwatch. Birds flushing from grid November Whiskey 37. Possible enemy movement. Commander Vance's voice came back immediately. Overwatch confirmed. Gate security is tracking. Stand by. Chun adjusted his scope, scanning the approaches. The sunset painted everything in orange and gold, beautiful and deceptive. Somewhere in that golden light, Zarif was moving his forces into position. Then he saw it, a glint of metal, there and gone, in the rocks overlooking the northwest approach. Chin's training kicked in automatically. Range to target, he said quietly. Reyes checked her rangefinder. 640 meters. Wind? Chin watched the grass and scrub moving in the evening breeze. 5 knots, gusting 7, left to right. He made the adjustment, his hands steady. TOC, Overwatch. I have positive identification of hostile forces at 640 meters, northwest approach. Multiple personnel with weapons. Vance responded. Overwatch. You're authorized to engage at your discretion. Repeat, authorized to engage. Chin's finger moved to the trigger. This was different from 2 nights ago. This was not panic or survival. This was calculated, deliberate. He was choosing to kill. He thought of Lily for just a moment, a flash of her smile, then pushed it away. She would understand. She would have to understand. He found his target in the scope. An insurgent with an RPG, setting up to fire at the gate. Priority threat. Chin exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked. Downrange, the insurgent dropped. RPG neutralized, he reported calmly. Moving to next target. He worked methodically, each shot deliberate and precise. The insurgents had not expected to take fire from this angle, had not accounted for a shooter in the galley. Their tactical plan had not included Chun. Reyes called out ranges as he acquired targets. 590, 620, 700. Chin dropped them one after another, his father's training overriding everything else. between heartbeats. Trust the scope. Let the rifle do its work. Then the mortars started falling. The insurgents had brought heavy weapons this time, learning from their first failure. Explosions walked across the compound, searching for defensive positions. One landed 50 meters from the galley, close enough to rattle the windows and shower them with debris. Overwatch, TOC. Can you locate the mortar position? Chen scanned desperately. There, 800 meters, concealed in a dry riverbed. He could see the tube, see the crew loading another round. That is beyond effective range for suppression, Reyes said. Chen did the math in his head. 800 meters. Gusting wind. Elevated position. Difficult shot, even under ideal conditions. I can make it, he said. Chun, Reyes protested. Even if you hit, you cannot take out a whole mortar crew with single shots. They will just keep firing. I do not need to take out the crew, Chun said, his eye to the scope. I just need to hit the tube. Bend it enough, they cannot fire accurately. That is impossible. My father made me do harder shots, Chen said. He fired. The bullet struck the mortar tube with a visible spark. The crew scattered, checking their weapon. Fired again. Another hit. The third shot bent the tube visibly, rendering it useless. The crew abandoned it and retreated. Holy God, Reyes whispered. Did you just disable a mortar at 800 meters? Chen was already scanning for new threats. 3 shots seemed like a reasonable expenditure of ammunition for removing a mortar position. His voice was calm, detached, the part of him that could do this work fully engaged now. The main assault hit the gate with overwhelming force. Zarif had brought nearly 80 fighters, and they came in coordinated waves. The gate guards were immediately pinned. The SEAL team rushed to reinforce, but this time the insurgents were ready for them. Automatic weapons fire from multiple positions created a killing zone. Chun watched Chief Torrance take cover behind a HESCO barrier, saw Morrison drag a wounded Marine to safety. The SEALs were outnumbered and outgunned. Without air support, which was still 15 minutes out, they would be overrun. TOC, Overwatch, Chen reported. Gate security is being overwhelmed. I am engaging multiple targets to provide relief. Do it, Vance responded. Whatever you can do, do it now. Chun shifted into a rhythm he had not felt since he was 17. Acquire. Range. Wind. Fire. Move to next target. His breathing slowed. His heart rate dropped. The chaos below became a tactical problem to be solved through precision and discipline. An insurgent appeared with another RPG. Chun dropped him before he could fire. A machine gun team set up on a ridge. Chun took out the gunner, then the loader. 3 fighters tried to flank the gate from the east. Chen put rounds so close to their position, they abandoned the attempt. Reyes was calling out targets, feeding him information. 200 meters, moving left. 350, stationary. 500, group of 4. Chen worked through them systematically. Each shot counted, each bullet placed with purpose. Then he saw Zarif. The Taliban commander was distinctive, taller than his men, moving with the confidence of someone used to giving orders. He was directing the assault from a position 700 meters out, using hand signals to coordinate his fighters. Overwatch, TOC. Do you have eyes on enemy leadership? Affirmative, Chen responded. 700 meters, northwest ridge. That is Zarif, the intelligence officer's voice cut in. If you can take that shot, it might break their coordination. Chen centered his crosshairs on Zarif's chest. This was different from the other targets. This was not a faceless threat. This was a man with a name, with history, with reasons for what he was doing. Chen's hand hesitated on the trigger. Chun, Torrance's voice crackled over the radio. I know what you're thinking. I know this is hard, but he is killing my men. Take the shot. Chen thought about his promise to Lily, about 8 years of avoiding this exact moment, about the fact that hesitation meant people died. He thought about Morrison, who had apologized, about Reyes, who believed in him, about Torrance, who had trusted him. He exhaled and fired. Zarif went down. For a moment, the battlefield seemed to pause. The insurgents had seen their leader fall. Then chaos erupted among their ranks. Some tried to retreat. Others fired wildly without coordination. The careful tactical plan dissolved into panic. Overwatch, TOC. Enemy commander is down. Hostile forces breaking contact. Chun lowered his rifle, his hands shaking now that the immediate crisis had passed. He had just killed a man from 700 meters away. A named man. A leader. Not in defense, not in panic, but in cold calculation. "Are you okay?" Reyes asked quietly. Chun shook his head. "No, but we can deal with that later." He forced himself to keep scanning, keep watching for threats. The battle was not over until the enemy was gone. The insurgents retreated in disorder, leaving their dead and wounded behind. Air support arrived and pursued the fleeing fighters into the mountains. The SEALs began securing the perimeter, treating casualties, counting the cost. Chun remained in position, his rifle ready, until Commander Vance's voice came over the radio. "Overwatch, TOC. Stand down. Area is secure." "Good work, Petty Officer." Acknowledged, Chun said mechanically. He engaged the safety and set the rifle down carefully. His hand was shaking badly now. Reyes put her hand on his shoulder. "Chun, how many? How many did I drop?" he asked, his voice hollow. She checked her tally sheet. 17 confirmed. Probably more that I could not verify in the chaos. 17 people dead because of me. 17 people who were trying to kill us. Reyes corrected firmly. 17 people who would have overrun this base if you had not stopped them. Chun looked at his hands. These hands that had held Lily while she died. These hands that had now taken 17 lives in 2 days. "I need a minute," he said quietly. "Take all the time you need," Reyes said. "I will tell them you are securing the position." She left him alone with his thoughts and his guilt and his rifle. 20 minutes later, Chief Torrens climbed the stairs to the galley's second floor. He found Chun sitting with his back against the wall, the rifle across his lap. Torrens sat down beside him without speaking. Finally, Chun said, "I killed their leader. In cold blood. I looked through a scope, centered the crosshairs on a man's chest, and pulled the trigger. That is not combat. That is execution. That is war," Torrens said quietly. "That is what snipers do. That is what your father did for 20 years. Did it make him a murderer?" Chun did not answer. Torrens continued. "Zarif was a tactical genius. He would have adapted, would have come back again and again until he found a way through our defenses. You did not just save lives today, Chun. You saved lives in every attack he would have planned in the future. That does not make it easier," Chun said. "I know," Torrens agreed. "It should not be easy. The day killing becomes easy is the day you stop being human. But you did what needed to be done. That matters." "Does it?" Chun asked. "Because right now I feel like I betrayed everything I promised my sister." "I think your sister would be proud," Torrens said. "I think she would see a man who used his skills to protect people, who overcame his trauma to do what was right, who honored his training by using it for good." "You did not know her." "No," Torrens admitted. "But I know you. And the man I have gotten to know over the past 2 days is not a killer. He is a protector who happens to be very good at killing when he has to be. There is a difference." Footsteps on the stairs. Commander Vance appeared, followed by Morrison and 2 other SEALs. "Petty Officer Chun," she said formally. "The base is secure. Casualties are minimal because of your actions. 17 confirmed enemy Kia, including their commander. You saved this base." Chun stood, his body aching from the tension. "I was just doing what Chief Torrens asked, ma'am." "You were doing a hell of a lot more than that," Morrison said. "Sir, if I may." He stepped forward. "Petty Officer Chun, I want to apologize again. Not just for calling you soft, but for being too blind to see what you really were. You are one of the finest combat shooters I have ever seen. It has been an honor serving with you." Chun did not know what to say. Morrison continued. The team took a vote. "We want to submit your name for formal recognition. Maybe even a commendation." Chun shook his head immediately. "No, no recognition, no commendations. I do not want to be celebrated for killing people." Vance studied him. "Even if those people were trying to kill us? Even then, ma'am, I did what I had to do. That does not mean I want a medal for it." She nodded slowly. "I understand. But Chun, whether you want recognition or not, you should know that every person on this base owes you their life. That matters." Chun looked out the window at the base below, at the people moving through the compound, at the lives that continued because of what he had done. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe Torrens was right. Maybe using his skills to protect people was not the same as the tragedy that took Lily. But the guilt was still there, would probably always be there. And Chin was learning to accept that maybe that was okay. Maybe carrying that weight was part of who he was now. The base settled into an uneasy quiet after the battle. Chun returned to the galley at 2200 hours, his rifle cleaned and locked away, his hands finally steady. He found Reyes in the kitchen, preparing late rations for the personnel, still securing the perimeter. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you," she countered. "But here we are." She handed him a knife and a cutting board. "Make yourself useful." They worked in comfortable silence, the familiar rhythm of food preparation oddly soothing after the violence of the evening. Finally, Reyes said, "You know everyone is talking about you, right?" Chin focused on the vegetables he was chopping. "I figure they would be. Morrison is calling you the best shooter he has ever seen. The Marines are saying you should transfer to Scout Sniper School. Commander Vance told the intelligence officer that you single-handedly prevented a catastrophic breach." Chin set down his knife. "Angela, I do not want to be a hero. I just want to be a cook who does not have to watch people die." She turned to face him fully. "But you're not just a cook anymore. You cannot put that genie back in a bottle. Everyone knows what you can do now." "I know," Chin said quietly, "and I do not know how to be that person. For 8 years I have been running from this. Now I'm right back in it, and I do not know if I made the right choice." "Did people live because of you tonight?" Reyes asked. "Yes." "Did you kill anyone who was not trying to kill us first?" "No." "Then you made the right choice." The galley door opened. Chief Torrens entered, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Figure I would find you here." "Chun, we need to talk." Reyes excused herself diplomatically, leaving them alone. Torrens sat heavily on one of the prep tables. "Final casualty count is in," he said. 3 Marines wounded, none critically. 2 SEALs with minor injuries. Jadolf Indikia, against a force of nearly 80 hostiles who came prepared for our defenses. "Chun, do you understand what that means?" "It means we got lucky," Chin said. "It means you saved us," Torrens corrected. "Intelligence estimates that without your Overwatch position, we would have lost at least 15 personnel. Maybe more. The gate would have been breached. They would have gotten into the compound. So I did what needed to be done," Chin said. "Yes," Torrens agreed. "And now I need to ask you to do it again." Chin looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "The Taliban does not just give up," Torrens said. "Zarif is dead, but his network is not. Intelligence thinks they might send someone else. Maybe not tomorrow or next week, but eventually. And you want me to be ready. I want you to consider making this permanent," Torrens said carefully. "Not just defensive operations during heightened threat. I want you to think about transferring ratings. Becoming what you actually are instead of pretending to be something you're not." Chun shook his head. "Chief, I became a cook for a reason. That reason being your sister's death," Torrens said gently. "Chun, I'm not trying to be cruel, but you've been punishing yourself for 8 years for something that was not your fault. How much longer are you going to let that tragedy define you?" "It will always define me," Chin said. "What happened to Lily changed everything. I cannot just forget it." "I'm not asking you to forget it," Torrens said. "I'm asking you to honor it differently. Your sister believed in you. She was proud of you. Do you think she would want you to waste your gifts out of guilt?" "I do not know what she would want," Chun said, his voice breaking slightly. "She was 14. She did not get to grow up and tell me what she thought I should do with my life." "Exactly," Torrens said quietly. "She did not get to grow up. But you did. You got the life she lost. The question is what you are going to do with it." Chin was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "When I was on that ridge tonight, looking through the scope at Zarif, I had this moment of clarity. I realized that I have been so focused on not being the person who was involved in Lily's death that I forgot to be the person she actually knew. The brother who protected her, who looked out for her, who would have done anything to keep her safe. And that person is a protector," Torrens said. "Yes, but I cannot protect her anymore. So maybe I need to protect other people's sisters, other people's brothers. Maybe that is how I honor her memory." Torrens stood. "I think you just answered your own question, Chun. I am not pressuring you to transfer ratings. That is your choice. But I want you to know that if you decide to, I will support it. My whole team will support it. You have earned that." After Torrens left, Chun stood in the empty galley and thought about choices. About the life he had built around avoiding violence. About the skills he had tried to bury. About 17 people dead because he had finally used those skills again. His phone buzzed. A message from his father, the first contact they had had in months. Chun had been avoiding his calls, unable to face the man who had trained him so thoroughly. The message was simple. Heard about what happened at your base. Proud of you, son. Call when you can. Chun stared at the words. Proud of you. When was the last time his father had said that? Before Lily died. Before Chun had walked away from everything his father had taught him. Before 8 years of silence and distance. He called. His father answered on the first ring. Marcus. Idat. There was a pause. Then his father's voice, rough with emotion. I heard what you did. The army has a way of sharing information when someone does something exceptional. They're saying you prevented a massacre. I just did what you taught me, Chin said. That is all it ever was, his father replied. Training. Discipline. Using your skills when they are needed. I never taught you to feel guilty for being good at something. I know, Chin said. But after Lily died, I could not separate the skills from the tragedy. Every time I picked up a rifle, all I could see was her face. His father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Your sister loved watching you shoot. Did you know that? She used to tell me you were going to be Olympic champion someday. She was so proud of you, Marcus. Proud of your discipline, your focus, your dedication. And then she died because of it, Chen said. She died because a safety barrier failed and a nervous kid jerked a trigger, his father said firmly. Not because you were talented. Not because you trained hard. Those things did not kill her. Bad luck and bad timing killed her. And I'm sorry I did not say that more clearly 8 years ago. Chun felt tears on his face. I have spent so long believing it was my fault. It was not your fault, his father said gently. It was never your fault. And son, if Lily could see what you did tonight, protecting all those people, using everything I taught you to save lives, she would be so incredibly proud of you. You think so? I know so. Because she knew you, Marcus. She knew that under all that talent and training, you had the biggest heart of anyone in our family. That is why she loved watching you compete. Not because you won, but because you did it with honor and grace. Chen wiped his eyes. Dad, I do not know what to do. Do I keep cooking? Do I accept that I am also this other thing? How do I be both? His father chuckled. Son, you have always been both. You think cooking does not take discipline, precision, the ability to work under pressure? You have been training those same qualities in a different context. Now you just need to accept that you can use them in multiple ways. Chief Torrens wants me to consider transferring ratings, Chin said. What do you think? I think you need to decide what will let you sleep at night, his father said. If staying in the galley does that, stay. If accepting your skills and using them to protect people does that, transfer. Either way, I am proud of you. Your mother is proud of you. And I believe Lily would be proud of you too. They talked for another hour, the longest conversation they had had in years. When Chin finally hung up, he felt lighter somehow. The guilt was still there, would probably always be there, but felt different now. Less like a chain and more like a reminder to honor what he had lost by protecting what remained. Reyes found him in the office, staring at his phone. Good conversation? The best one I've had in 8 years, Chin admitted. She smiled. Good, because you need to know something. While you're talking, the whole base has been buzzing. They want to do something for you. Some kind of recognition. I already told Commander Vance no medals. Not a medal, Reyes said. Something else. Something that matters. She handed him a tablet showing an email chain. It was a petition signed by nearly every person on base. Marines, Navy, contractors, interpreters. All of them asking that the galley be renamed in his honor. Chen stared at the screen. They want to name the galley after me? Reyes nodded. Chen's galley. Because you fed them, you protected them, and you did it all while being the person nobody saw. Now they see you, and they want you to know it matters. Chen did not know what to say. Reyes continued. You do not have to decide tonight. But think about it. Think about the fact that all these people who you served every day for 3 months want to honor you. Not for being a shooter, for being you. After she left, Chun sat in the quiet office and thought about identity. About being a cook who was also a shooter. About serving food and saving lives. about the fact that maybe he did not have to choose between them. Maybe he could be both. Maybe that was okay. At 0430, out of habit and need for normalcy, Chin started preparing breakfast. Reyes joined him at 0515. They worked together in the kitchen that might soon bear his name, preparing food for people who now saw him as more than just a cook. Morrison came through early again. He stopped at the serving line and said, "Heard about the galley renaming. I think it's a good idea. You have earned it." "Thank you, Morrison," Chun said. The seal lingered. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Morrison looked uncomfortable. "How do you do it? How do you kill people and then come back here and cook breakfast like nothing happened?" Chin thought about the question carefully. "I do not pretend nothing happened. I carry every shot I took, every person who died. But I also know that if I had not taken those shots, you and your team would be dead. Chief Torrens would be dead. Angela would be dead. So I carry the weight because the alternative is worse." Morrison nodded slowly. "That is a good answer. It is the only answer I have," Chin said. "I'm still figuring out how to live with what I have done. But I think maybe the key is not trying to forget it or run from it. It is accepting that sometimes good people have to do hard things to protect other good people." "You are a better man than I gave you credit for," Morrison said. "Thank you for saving us." Chin served him his breakfast. "Thank you for seeing me," he replied. Finally, 3 days after the battle, the base had returned to something approximating normal operations. Patrols resumed. Supply convoys arrived. The damaged sections of the perimeter were repaired. But everyone knew the quiet was temporary. Intelligence reported increased Taliban radio traffic in the region, suggesting that Zarif's death had not ended the threat. Chin maintained his dual role, cooking during the day and manning the overwatch position during high-risk periods. The M110 stayed in the galley office, always within reach. He had stopped pretending he was just a cook. The secret was out, and there was no going back. On the fourth morning, Commander Vance called him to her office. Chin arrived to find her reviewing satellite imagery with the intelligence officer, Captain Rodriguez. "Petty Officer Chun, have a seat." Chun sat, noting the serious expressions. "Ma'am, is there new intelligence?" Vance gestured to the screen. "Captain Rodriguez has been tracking Taliban movements since the attack." "Tell him what you found, Captain." Rodriguez pulled up a map marked with symbols. "After Zarif's death, we expected the Taliban to pull back and regroup. Instead, they are consolidating forces. We are tracking movement from 3 different cells, all converging on this region." "How many personnel?" Chin asked. Rodriguez grimaced. "Best estimate, 120 to 150. They are planning something big. An attempt to take the entire base," Vance said. "Not just probe our defenses or make a statement. They want to overrun FOB Nightingale completely." Chin studied the map. "When?" 72 hours, give or take," Rodriguez said. "They are moving carefully, avoiding our usual surveillance patterns. But they are coming, and they are bringing everything they have." Vance leaned back in her chair. "I have requested emergency reinforcements from Bagram. The earliest they can arrive is 96 hours, which means we are on our own for at least 24 hours if the attack comes when we expect." "What are our defensive capabilities?" Chin asked. Vance looked at him appraisingly. "You're asking tactical questions like an operator, not a cook." Chin met her eyes. "Ma'am, with respect, I stopped being just a cook the moment I picked up that rifle. I might as well start thinking like what I actually am." "And what are you, Chun?" "I am someone who is very good at keeping people alive by being very good at the opposite," Chin said quietly. "I do not like it, but I have stopped pretending it is not true." Vance nodded. "Good, because I need that person right now. Our defensive capabilities are stretched thin. We have the SEAL team, 2 Marine rifle squads, and base security. Against 150 hostiles with heavy weapons, we're going to be overwhelmed without a force multiplier." "What kind of force multiplier?" Chin asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "You," Vance said bluntly. "In the last 2 engagements, you have accounted for 26 confirmed enemy Kia. That is nearly 15% of their total forces. If you can maintain that ratio during a larger assault, it might be the difference between holding the base and losing it." "That is a lot of pressure on one shooter," Chin observed. "I know," Vance said, "which is why I'm asking you directly. Can you do this?" "Not as an order. As a question, can you be what we need you to be? Chin thought about the weight of 17 lives already on his conscience, about adding potentially dozens more, about the fact that refusing meant watching people die, about the fact that he had already made his choice when he broke his promise to Lily. Yes, ma'am, he said. I can do it, but I need some things. Name them. Better positioning, Chun said. The galley gives me good line of sight to the northwest and the gate, but if they come from multiple directions, I will be limited. I need secondary and tertiary positions prepared with ammunition prestiged. Vance looked at Rodriguez. Make it happen. What else? Communication, Chun continued. During the last fight, I was relying on Petty Officer Reyes as a spotter, but she's not trained for that role. If I'm going to be effective, I need someone who can read the battlefield and help me prioritize targets. I can assign you one of my SEALs, Chief Torrance said from the doorway. Chun turned, not having heard him enter. Torrance continued. Morrison volunteered. He has spotting experience, and he wants to work with you. Morrison volunteered? Chun could not hide his surprise. After what happened, Morrison thinks you walk on water, Torrance said with a slight smile. Half my team does. The other half thinks you are some kind of secret operator we did not know about. Either way, they all want to support you. Accepted, Chun said. What else? Vance prompted. Fallback plans, Chun said. If my primary position is compromised, I need clear routes to secondary positions and someone covering those movements. I also need to know the base defense plan so I can anticipate where enemies will concentrate. You are thinking like a sniper, Rodriguez observed. My father was a sniper, Chun said. He taught me that the difference between a good shooter and a great one is not accuracy. It is understanding the battlefield and being where you are most needed. Over the next 72 hours, the base transformed into a fortress. Chun worked with Torrance and Morrison to establish 3 firing positions, each with cached ammunition and clear sight lines to different approaches. They rehearsed movement between positions until Chun could relocate in under 2 minutes, even in darkness. Morrison proved to be an excellent spotter, his SEAL training giving him the ability to read terrain and predict enemy movement. They spent hours on the range, Morrison calling targets while Chun engaged them. A rhythm developed between them, professional and efficient. On the second day of preparation, Morrison asked the question Chun had been expecting. Can I ask you something personal? Of course, Chun said, adjusting his scope. Why did you really become a cook? I mean, with your skills, you could have been anything. Special operations. Intelligence. Why choose the one job that kept you furthest from combat? Chun lowered his rifle. Because combat killed my sister. Not directly, but close enough. And I thought if I could just stay away from weapons, stay away from violence, I could somehow make up for being part of the world that took her from me. But you could not stay away, Morrison observed. No, Chun agreed. Because it turns out you cannot run from who you are. You can only choose how to use it. Morrison was quiet for a moment. For what it is worth, I think your sister would understand why you tried. And I think she would be proud that you came back when it mattered. You sound like my father, Chun said. Your father sounds like a smart man, Morrison replied. He is. He is also a Marine who spent 20 years doing exactly what I am about to do. Defend people by being willing to kill threats. It is strange how I spent so long running from becoming him, and here I am anyway. You are not him, though, Morrison said. You are you. A cook who happens to be the best defensive shooter I have ever seen. That is not a bad thing to be. She managed to smile. Tell me that again after the shooting starts. On the third day, intelligence confirmed the attack would come that night. Final preparations went into overdrive. Non-essential personnel were evacuated to the bunker. Defensive positions were reinforced. The SEAL team ran through their response plans one final time. Chun stood in his primary position, the galley's second floor, and watched the sun set over the mountains. Somewhere out there, 150 fighters were preparing to attack. Men who believed they were righteous. Men who were willing to die for their cause. Men Chun would have to kill to protect people he had only recently started to know. Reyes found him as twilight deepened. You ready? As ready as I will ever be, Chun said. She handed him a thermos of coffee. Figured you would need this. You know me too well, he said gratefully. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Chun, promise me something. Anything. Promise me you will come back. After this is over, after you do what you need to do, promise me the person I know is still in there. Chen looked at her, this woman who had been his only friend when he was just the invisible cook, who had believed in him before anyone else, who had stayed by his side even when she learned the truth about what he could do. I promise, he said. I will always be the cook who makes breakfast. I'm just also this other thing now, too. Good, she said, because people need both versions of you. The one who feeds them and the one who protects them. Chen hugged her briefly. Thank you, Angela, for everything, for seeing me when nobody else did. After she left, Morrison arrived with full combat gear and communication equipment. Time to get into position, he said. Chen picked up the M110, checked the chamber one final time. How many magazines do we have staged? 15 in this position, Morrison reported. 10 each in positions 2 and 3. 450 rounds total. Should be enough. Should be, Chen agreed. Unless it is not. Then we improvise, Morrison said. That is what SEALs do. Chen smiled grimly. I'm not a SEAL. Morrison clapped him on the shoulder. Tonight you are close enough. Tonight you are exactly what we need you to be. The radio crackled. All positions, this is TOC. Perimeter sensors detecting movement on multiple approaches. Estimate hostile forces at 100 plus. Time of contact, 10 minutes. Stand by. Chen settled into his firing position, his breathing already slowing, his mind entering the focused state his father had trained into him. Morrison set up the spotting scope beside him. Target-rich environment incoming, he said quietly. Priority is heavy weapons and leadership. I know, Chen said. His finger rested alongside the trigger guard. Not yet. Not until they were close enough. Not until it mattered. The mountains were dark now, but Chen's scope had night vision capability. He could see them coming. Dozens of shapes moving through the darkness. Moving toward the base. Moving toward the people Chen had sworn to protect. Here we go, Morrison whispered. Here we go, Chen agreed. And then the shooting started. The first wave hit the perimeter with coordinated precision. Explosions rippled along the wire as insurgents breached in 3 locations simultaneously. Chen watched through his scope as the carefully planned attack unfolded exactly as intelligence had predicted. Northwest approach, Morrison called out, scanning with his spotting scope. RPG team at 600 meters. I have them, Chen said calmly. He centered his crosshairs on the RPG gunner, exhaled, and fired. The gunner dropped. His loader grabbed the weapon. Chen fired again. Both men down in 3 seconds. East perimeter, Morrison continued. Machine gun emplacement. 570 meters. Chen swung his rifle right, acquired the target, fired twice. The machine gun went silent. He was already moving back to scan for new threats before the bodies hit the ground. The base's defensive weapons opened up, tracers lighting the darkness like deadly fireflies. The SEAL team was holding the gate with disciplined fire. The Marines were covering the east approach. But there were too many insurgents coming from too many directions. Mortar teams, Morrison said urgently. Multiple positions. 800 to 900 meters. Chen gritted his teeth. Long-range shots in darkness against moving targets. He found the first mortar tube, calculated wind and distance, fired. Mississippi adjusted. Fired again. The tube sparked and bent. Moved to the next one. For 20 minutes, Chen worked with mechanical efficiency. Morrison called targets. Chen engaged them. The rhythm was brutal and precise. Each shot mattered. Each kill bought time for the defenders. Then Morrison said, "Oh hell." "What?" Chen asked, still scanning through his scope. "Look at the main road." Chen shifted his aim. What he saw made his blood run cold. A technical truck, mounting a heavy machine gun, was racing toward the gate. Behind it, 3 more vehicles packed with fighters. TOC, Overwatch, Chen reported. 4 vehicles inbound on main access road. Heavy weapons mounted. ETA 2 minutes. We see them, Vance responded, her voice tight. Can you stop them? Chen did the math. Moving targets at 600 meters in darkness. He would get maybe 2 shots per vehicle before they reached the gate. Not enough. Negative, he said. Not from this position. Then we brace for impact, Vance said. Gate security, prepare for vehicle assault. Morrison looked at Chun. There has to be something we can do. Chen's mind raced through options. The vehicles were armored in front. Shooting the drivers would not stop their momentum. But the fuel tanks. If he could hit the fuel tanks. Morrison, Chen said quickly, I need exact range to lead vehicle. Morrison adjusted his scope. 590 and closing fast. 400 meters per minute. Chen calculated frantically. Moving target. Armored. But fuel tanks were usually rear-mounted on technicals. Vulnerable. Tell me when they hit 500 meters, Chun said. Were you planning? Morrison asked. Something stupid, Chen admitted. He adjusted his aim point, leading the target, calculating where the fuel tank would be when the bullet arrived. 500, Morrison called. Chen fired. Missed. Adjusted. Fired again. The lead technical exploded in a fireball that lit up the night. The vehicle behind it swerved, lost control, flipped. 2 down. Holy God, Morrison breathed. Did you just hit a fuel tank on a moving vehicle at 500 meters? The training kicked in, Chun said, already acquiring the third vehicle. Sometimes you do not think. You just trust. He fired 3 more times. The third vehicle caught fire, but kept moving. The fourth made it through, crashing into the gate defenses. Insurgents poured out, engaging the SEALs at close range. We need to move, Morrison said. They're going to flank this position. Chen was already breaking down his rifle. Agreed. Position 2. They moved quickly through the pre-planned route. Chen carrying his rifle while Morrison covered with his M4. Explosions bracketed their path. The galley took a direct hit from an RPG, the second floor collapsing in flames. That was our position 30 seconds ago, Morrison said as they ran. 30 seconds is the difference between living and dying, Chen replied. My father taught me that. Position 2 was the command building roof, giving Chen higher elevation and clear sight lines to the burning gate. He set up quickly, muscle memory taking over. Morrison was already scanning for targets. Gate is being overrun, Morrison reported. SEALs are falling back to secondary defensive line. Chen could see Chief Torrens directing his team, firing and moving with professional precision. But the insurgents had numbers and momentum. The SEALs were being pushed back. Chen began engaging targets systematically. An insurgent with a grenade. Down. A fighter trying to flank Torrens. Down. A group rushing the breach. 3 shots, 3 down. He worked through his magazine, dropped it, reloaded in under 2 seconds. The battlefield was chaos. Fires burned across the compound. Tracer rounds crisscrossed the darkness. Explosions sent debris flying. And through it all, Chen maintained his focused calm, his father's training overriding the terror and confusion. Overwatch, TOC. We have wounded at the aid station. Insurgents are moving toward that position. Can you provide cover? Chun swung his rifle toward the aid station. He could see figures moving through the smoke, weapons ready, closing on the building where the wounded were being treated. I have them, Chun said. He began firing. 1 down. 2. 3. The insurgents scattered, seeking cover. But Chen knew where they would go, anticipated their movements, put rounds where they would be. You are hurting them, Morrison said with realization, pushing them away from the aid station. My father used to say that shooting is not just about hitting targets, Chen replied, still firing. It is about controlling the battlefield, making the enemy move where you want them to move. He put his last round into an insurgent trying to circle back toward the wounded. The magazine clicked empty. Chen reloaded his last fresh magazine. 15 rounds remaining. Morrison, how many do we have left after this? 2 more magazines, Morrison said. 45 rounds total, against approximately 60 remaining hostiles. The math was not good. Then make every shot count, Chen said. He went back to work. Each round was precious now. No wasted shots. No hasty fighting. Only precision. The fighting continued for another 15 brutal minutes. The SEALs had stabilized their line. The Marines were holding the east perimeter, but ammunition was running low across the entire base. Air support was still 5 minutes out. Chen was down to his final magazine when he saw the opportunity. A group of insurgents had gathered behind a burned-out vehicle, clearly leadership coordinating the assault. If he could disrupt them, break their command structure, the attack might falter. Morrison, Chen said quietly. 300 meters behind the wreckage. Si personnel. I see them, Morrison confirmed. That is their command element. Take the shot. Chen centered his crosshairs on the central figure, clearly giving orders. This was not like shooting Zara from distance. This was close enough to see faces, to see humanity. His finger hesitated on the trigger. Chen, Morrison said urgently. They're planning something. You need to take them now. Chen thought of Lily, of his promise, of 8 years of running from this moment. Then he thought of the wounded in the aid station, of Torrens and his team, of Reyes hiding in the bunker, of all the people who would die if he hesitated. He fired. The leader dropped. Fired again. Another down. The group scattered, but Chen tracked them, firing with methodical precision. His last magazine emptied. 6 shots. 5 confirmed kills. The insurgent command element shattered. And suddenly, the enemy attack lost coherence. Without leadership, the assault became disorganized. Fighters began retreating independently. The coordinated pressure evaporated. They are breaking, Morrison said, disbelief in his voice. They are actually breaking. The sound of jets overhead confirmed it. Air support had arrived. The insurgents who had committed to the attack were now trapped between the base defenses and inbound ordnance. It was over. Overwatch, TOC. Enemy forces in full retreat. Air assets engaging. Cease fire and assess. Chen lowered his rifle, his hands shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. His ears rang from the constant firing. Smoke burned his lungs. But he was alive. Morrison clapped him on the shoulder. Chen, that was the most incredible shooting I have ever witnessed. You just saved this entire base. I just did what needed to be done, Chen said quietly. He looked at the battlefield below, at the fires and the bodies and the cost of survival. How many did I drop? Morrison checked his tally marks. 43 confirmed from this position. Combined with the first engagement, you personally accounted for over 60 enemy Kia tonight. Chen felt the weight of those numbers settle on him. 60 people dead. 60 lives ended because his father had taught him to shoot between heartbeats. But the base still stands, Morrison said gently, reading his expression. The wounded are alive. The SEALs made it. We made it. Because of you. Is it worth it? Chen asked. 60 lives to save maybe 40? Morrison looked at him seriously. You are asking the wrong question. It is not about the math. It is about which lives. Those 60 came here to kill us. To overrun this base. To murder people who were just trying to serve their country. You stopped them. That is not murder, Chen. That is protection. Chen wanted to believe him. Wanted to feel the righteousness of it. But all he felt was tired. So incredibly tired. Come on, Morrison said. Let's get you down from here. Chief will want to debrief. And I think Commander Vance is going to have some things to say. They climbed down from the roof as the base began damage assessment and casualty collection. Chen walked through the compound in a daze, barely registering the people who stopped to thank him, to shake his hand, to tell him he had saved their lives. Reyes found him outside the destroyed galley, staring at the rubble. She did not say anything, just took his hand and held it. The building was gone. His position, his kitchen, the place where he had hidden for 3 months, all reduced to smoking debris. We will rebuild, she said finally. It will be better than before. She nodded, unable to speak. The galley could be rebuilt. The base could be repaired. But the Chun who had arrived 3 months ago, the cook who just wanted to avoid violence, that version of himself was gone forever, burned away in the same fires that had consumed his kitchen. And he did not know yet if what remained was better or worse. Just different. Irrevocably, permanently different. The morning after the battle arrived with brutal sunshine that exposed every scar the base had suffered. Chen sat in the temporary chow hall, a hastily erected tent serving cold rations, and tried to reconcile the man he had been with the man he had become. Commander Vance found him there at 0700. She looked as exhausted as Chun felt. Petty Officer Chun, we need to talk. Chun stood automatically. Yes, ma'am. Sit, she said, joining him at the table. This is not that kind of conversation. She pulled out a tablet and set it between them. Final casualty assessment is complete. For friendly Kia, 11 wounded, 3 critical but stable, against an attacking force of approximately 150 hostiles, of which we eliminated or captured 97. Those are miracle numbers, Chun. They do not feel like miracles, ma'am, Chun said quietly. I know, Vance replied. They feel like weight, like responsibility, like something you will carry for the rest of your life. She looked at him directly. I have read your file now. The real one, not just your service record. I know about your sister. I know why you became a cook. Chun met her eyes. Then I spent 8 years trying to be someone I'm not. She shook her head. No, you spent 8 years trying to atone for something that was not your fault. There is a difference. But that ends now, Chun. You cannot go back to just being the cook. Not after this. I know, ma'am. Good, because I am formally recommending you for the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for your actions during the defense of this base. I am also recommending you for immediate rating change to Master at Arms with Specialist designation. Chun started to protest. Ma'am, I do not want medals. I did what I had to do. Vance held up her hand. I'm not asking what you want. I'm telling you what is happening. You saved over 200 lives in the past week. You deserve recognition whether you want it or not. More importantly, the Navy needs people with your skills and positions where they can be properly utilized. What if I refuse the rating change? Chun asked. Then you stay a cook who sometimes shoots people, Vance said bluntly. Is that really what you want? To keep pretending you are something you are not? Before Chun could answer, Chief Torrens entered the tent with his entire team. Morrison, the young corporal, the others. They looked battered but alive. Chun, Torrens said. We need a word. All of us. Vance stood. I will leave you to it. Think about what I said, Chun. This is your chance to stop running. She left, and the SEALs surrounded Chen's table. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Torrens said, My team took a vote. Unanimous. We want you to know that, as of today, you are an honorary member of this SEAL team. You are not a SEAL. You did not go through BUD/S. You did not earn the Trident. But you earned our respect. You earned our brotherhood. And if you ever need anything, anywhere, anytime, you call us. We'll be there. Morrison stepped forward and placed something on the table. It was a SEAL team patch, the one they wore on their uniforms. This is mine, he said. I'm giving it to you. Not because you are a SEAL. Because you are family. Chun picked up the patch with trembling hands. I do not know what to say. Say you will stop calling yourself just a cook, the young corporal said. Because, man, you are so much more than that. One by one, each SEAL placed something on the table. A patch, a challenge coin, a worn photograph of the team. Tokens of respect from men who gave respect reluctantly and meant it absolutely when they did. Thank you, Chun managed. All of you. For seeing me. For trusting me. For letting me protect you. Torrens gripped his shoulder. Brother, you did not just protect us. You became one of us. That matters. The team filed out, leaving Chun alone with a table full of mementos and a heart full of emotions he could not name. Reyes found him an hour later, still sitting in the tent, staring at the SEAL patch. Hey, she said softly. You okay? Chun shook his head. No, not even close. But I think maybe that is okay. She sat beside him. I heard about the medal recommendation. The rating change. What are you going to do? I do not know yet, Chun admitted. Part of me wants to refuse it all. Go back to cooking. Pretend the last week did not happen. But I cannot do that anymore, can I? No, Reyes said gently. You cannot. Because everyone knows the truth now. You cannot unring that bell. So what do you want, Chun? Really want? He thought about the question. Thought about his promise to Lily. About his father's training. About 69 people dead by his hand in 1 week. About 200 people alive because of those same deaths. I want to honor my sister's memory, he said slowly. For 8 years, I thought that meant avoiding violence. Refusing to use the skills my father taught me. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe honoring her means protecting other people's sisters. Other people's brothers. Using what I have to keep people safe. That sounds like acceptance, Reyes observed. It sounds like finally forgiving yourself. I do not know if I can forgive myself, Chun said. But maybe I can live with myself. Maybe I can accept that I am both the person who lost Lily and the person who saved you. Both the cook and the shooter. Maybe I do not have to choose. Reyes squeezed his hand. I think your sister would be proud of who you have become. Chun felt tears on his face. I hope so, because I cannot go back, even if I wanted to. The cook who arrived here 3 months ago does not exist anymore. I do, she said firmly. I am still here, and I am proud of you. Both versions of you. At 1400 hours, Chun stood in Commander Vance's office with his decision made. Ma'am, I accept the rating change recommendation. I will transfer to Master at Arms. I will use my skills where they are needed. But I have 2 conditions. Vance raised an eyebrow. You are negotiating with your commanding officer? With respect, ma'am, yes. She almost smiled. Go ahead. First condition, Chun said. I want to finish my culinary certification. I want to maintain that skill even as I develop the other one. I want to be both things, not just one. Approved, Vance said without hesitation. Second condition, I want Petty Officer Reyes transferred with me to whatever my next duty station is. She's been my anchor through this. I need her to help me remember who I was before I became who I am now. Vance considered. That will take some paperwork, but I can make it happen. Anything else? Chin thought about all the things he wanted. Wanted to erase the past week. Wanted Lily back. Wanted to never have learned to shoot. But wanting did not change reality. No, ma'am. That is all. Then welcome to your new rating, Petty Officer Chun. Or should I say, soon-to-be Petty Officer First Class Chun. The promotion comes with the specialist designation. Chun felt the weight of it. A promotion earned through killing. Through becoming exactly what he had run from for 8 years. Thank you, ma'am. I will do my best to be worthy of it. Vance stood and offered her hand. You already are. You save this base, Chun. You save lives. That is what being worthy means. That evening, Chun walked through the base as the sun set. The repairs had already begun. New HESCO barriers going up. The galley being cleared for reconstruction. Life continuing despite the violence that had nearly ended it. He found himself at the spot where the gate guards had been pinned during the first attack, where he had taken his first shots after 8 years of silence. The concrete barriers were chewed up by bullets. Blood stained the ground, evidence of how close they had come to disaster. Morrison found him there. Thought I might find you here. Chin glanced at him, just thinking about how everything changed in one moment. One decision to pick up a rifle instead of running to the bunker. Regret it? Morrison asked. Chin considered the question honestly. No, I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life I took. But I do not regret saving people. That feels like growth. Morrison nodded. You know what the team calls you now? Chun shook his head. The Guardian. Because that is what you are. Not a killer. Not a shooter. A Guardian who happens to be very good at shooting. I like that, Chun said softly. That feels right. They stood in comfortable silence as the sunset painted the mountains in shades of orange and purple. The same mountains that had hidden the insurgents. The same mountains that had witnessed everything Chun had become. Finally, Morrison said, you know we deploy out in 2 weeks. Back to the States for refit and training. What are you going to do? I'm going to cook breakfast tomorrow, Chin said. Then I'm going to clean my rifle. Then I'm going to figure out how to be both of those people at the same time. Sounds like a plan, Morrison said. And Chun, when you figure out, let me know. Because I think a lot of us are trying to figure out how to be more than one thing, too. They walked back toward the temporary galley together. 2 men who had started as strangers and become brothers through shared combat. Chin did not know what his future held. Did not know if he would ever truly forgive himself for breaking his promise to Lily. But he knew he had made the right choice. Had used his skills to protect people. Had honored his father's training by saving lives instead of just taking them. And maybe, just maybe, that was what Lily would have wanted all along. Not for him to hide who he was, but to be who he was in the best way possible. The temporary galley was serving dinner when they arrived. Chun smiled at Reyes, who was helping distribute rations. She smiled back, understanding in her eyes. Tomorrow he would start the paperwork for his rating change. Would begin the process of officially becoming what he had proven he already was. But tonight, he would serve food to the people he had saved. Would be the cook who fed them. Because that was part of who he was too. And he was done pretending otherwise. 2 weeks after the final battle, FOB Nightingale had transformed from a war zone back into a functioning military installation. The galley had been rebuilt, this time with reinforced walls and better defensive positions. A bronze plaque beside the entrance read Chen's Galley, approved by unanimous vote of base personnel. Chen stood in front of it at dawn, coffee in hand, still adjusting to seeing his name on a building. Reyes joined him, also carrying coffee. Strange, is not it? Seeing your name up there? Very strange, Chen admitted. 3 months ago, I was invisible. Now I have a building named after me. 3 months ago you were hiding, Reyes corrected gently. Now you're seen. There's a difference. The paperwork for Chen's rating change had been expedited, processed in record time, with personal endorsements from Commander Vance, Chief Torrens, and 3 other senior officers. In 2 days, he would officially become a petty officer first class with Master at Arms rating and precision marksman designation. Reyes's transfer request had also been approved. They would both be reassigned to Naval Station Norfolk for advanced training. But first, there was one final thing Chen needed to do. At 0900, he stood in Commander Vance's office with his dress uniform crisp and his mind clear. The medal ceremony was scheduled for 1100 hours, and Vance wanted to brief him personally. You do not have to accept the medal, Chen, she said quietly. I know you did not do this for recognition. I did not, Chen agreed. But I'm accepting it anyway. Not for me. For everyone who fought beside me. For the SEALs who trusted me. For Reyes who believed in me. For my father who trained me. They deserve to see that their faith was not misplaced. Vance smiled. That is exactly the right answer. The ceremony will be at the memorial site. The entire base will be in attendance. Are you ready for that? To be publicly recognized? No, Chen said honestly. But I am doing it anyway. Because part of accepting who I am means accepting what I did. Good and bad. The memorial site was a small, cleared area where the base honored fallen personnel. For new markers had been added for the Marines and sailors who had died in the battles. Chen read their names before the ceremony began, memorizing them, adding them to the weight he carried. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, USMC, age 28. Corporal Jennifer Nakamura, USMC, age 23. Hospital Corpsman 3rd Class David Park, age 25. Petty Officer 2nd Class James Wright, age 31. For lives that Chen's shooting had not been enough to save. For families who would never be whole again. I am sorry, he whispered to their markers. I wish I could have done more. A hand touched his shoulder. Chief Torrens stood beside him. You saved 40 others, Chen. You cannot save everyone. Believe me, I have tried. The math never works out the way you want. Does it get easier? Chen asked. Carrying the weight of the ones you could not save? Torrens shook his head. No, but you learn to carry it without letting it break you. You learn to honor them by protecting the ones you can. That is all any of us can do. The base personnel assembled at 1100 sharp. Chen stood at attention as Commander Vance read the citation. For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action against an armed enemy force. Petty Officer 2nd Class Marcus Chun, United States Navy, distinguished himself through exceptional courage and tactical brilliance during multiple combat engagements at Forward Operating Base Nightingale, Afghanistan. The words felt surreal. Heroism, gallantry, words that did not match how Chun felt inside. But he stood straight and accepted them because refusing would dishonor everyone who had fought beside him. Despite being assigned to non-combat duties as a culinary specialist, Petty Officer Chin voluntarily assumed defensive positions during coordinated Taliban assaults on the base. Utilizing exceptional marksmanship skills and tactical awareness, he single-handedly neutralized 69 enemy combatants over the course of 3 separate engagements, preventing the overrun of the installation and saving an estimated 200 friendly personnel. 69. The number hung in the air. 69 people dead by Chen's hand. 69 families who would never see their sons or brothers or fathers again. The math that Torrens talked about, forever unbalanced. Vance continued. Petty Officer Chen's actions demonstrated the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the United States Navy, and the Department of Defense. She pinned the Navy and Marine Corps medal to his chest. The weight of it felt both insignificant and crushing. The base erupted in applause. Chun saw Morrison grinning with his team, saw Reyes with tears on her face, saw his fellow support personnel cheering someone who had been invisible to them for months, saw the Marines and sailors he had protected, alive because of decisions he had made in moments of terrible clarity. After the ceremony, people lined up to shake his hand, to thank him, to tell him he had saved their lives. Chun accepted each thanks with quiet grace, but inside he felt like a fraud. Heroes should feel heroic. He just felt tired. His father called that evening. Chun took the call in his quarters, still in his dress uniform. "Dad, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything, son," his father replied. "I watched the ceremony over video link. I saw you standing there, accepting that medal. I have never been more proud of you, even knowing what it cost." Chun asked, "What always costs?" "Especially knowing that," his father said. "You think I did not carry my own weight? You think every shot I took in 20 years of service does not stay with me? Of course it does. But I also know that I used my skills to protect people, just like you did." Chun looked at the medal on his desk. "Did you ever regret teaching me? Regret making me this good?" "Never," his father said firmly. "I regret what happened to Lily every single day. But I do not regret teaching you discipline, precision, and honor. Those are gifts, Marcus. What happened to your sister was tragedy. But what you did with those gifts this past month, that was purpose." They talked for an hour, the longest conversation they had ever had. His father told stories of his own struggles with the cost of combat, shared the names of people he could not save, explained how he had learned to carry the weight without letting it destroy him. When they finally hung up, Chun felt something shift inside. Not absolution, not forgiveness, but acceptance. He had made choices. Those choices had consequences, and he would carry those consequences with honor, because the alternative was abandoning the people who depended on him. The next morning, Chun cooked breakfast in the newly rebuilt galley for the last time. Reyes worked beside him, their familiar rhythm unchanged despite everything that had happened. They served the base personnel who filed through, the same people Chun had served for months, but now they saw him. Really saw him. Morrison came through the line. "Heard you ship out tomorrow." "Yeah," Chun said. "Norfolk for training. Then wherever the Navy sends me." Morrison extended his hand. "It has been an honor, Chun, serving with you, fighting beside you, learning from you." "The honor was mine," Chun replied. "Thank you for seeing me when I was trying to be invisible." After breakfast service, Chun cleaned the galley one final time. He walked through the kitchen, touching the surfaces, remembering the person he had been when he first arrived. That Chun had been running, hiding, trying to escape who he really was. This Chun, the one leaving tomorrow, was done running. He was a cook who could shoot, a protector who could feed. Both things at once, integrated and whole. Not perfect, not without guilt or pain, but honest about who he was and what he could do. Reyes found him in the empty kitchen. "Last time in this space. How do you feel?" "Lighter," Chun said, "and heavier at the same time. If that makes sense." "Perfect sense," she said. "You are carrying new weight, but you stopped carrying the old weight of pretending. That is growth." They stood together in the quiet galley as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows. Tomorrow they would leave Afghanistan, would start new assignments, would begin the next chapter of lives permanently altered by 1 week of violence. But tonight, Chun had one final task. He pulled out his phone and composed a message to his mother, who he had not spoken to since Lily's funeral 8 years ago. "Mom," he wrote, "I am sorry I disappeared after Lily died. I was angry and guilty, and I did not know how to face you. But I want you to know that I finally understand something. Lily would not have wanted me to waste my life punishing myself. She would have wanted me to use what I have to help people. I think I'm finally doing that. I hope you can forgive me for taking so long to figure it out." He hit send before he could second-guess himself. His phone rang almost immediately. His mother's voice, thick with tears. "Marcus? Baby, is that really you?" "Yeah, Mom," Chun said, his own voice breaking. "It is me. I am sorry it took so long." They talked for 2 hours. She told him about the memorial garden she had planted for Lily, about how proud she was that he had found purpose, about how much she had missed him. Chun told her about the medal, about his new rating, about finally accepting both parts of himself. When he finally hung up, Reyes was waiting outside his quarters. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay," Chun said. "I just reconnected with my mother." Reyes hugged him. "I'm proud of you. For all of it. For fighting. For healing. For becoming who you were meant to be." That night, Chun packed his belongings. The SEAL team patches and coins, the medal citation, his cooking knives, and his rifle cleaning kit. The tools of both his identities packed side by side. Tomorrow he would leave FOB Nightingale as Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun, Master at Arms, Precision Marksman, and Culinary Specialist. All of those things at once. No longer hiding, no longer running, just living with the fullness of who he was, consequences and all. The C-130 lifted off from FOB Nightingale at dawn, carrying Chun and Reyes away from the place that had transformed them both. Chun watched through the window as the base grew smaller, the mountains of Afghanistan receding into the distance. 3 months ago, he had arrived as a cook trying to hide. He was leaving as something entirely different. Reyes sat beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You okay?" "Always asking me that," Chun said with a small smile. "Someone has to," she replied. "And yeah, I am okay. For the first time in 8 years, I actually mean it when I say that." The flight to Bagram was quiet, both of them lost in their own thoughts. From there, they would catch a transport to Germany, then finally to Norfolk, a journey that would take 36 hours, but felt like traveling between two completely different lives. At Bagram, Chief Torrance and his SEAL team were waiting at the airfield. Chun had not expected them. "Chief, what are you doing here? Your transport does not leave until tomorrow." Torrance grinned. "Came to see you off properly. Could not let you leave without a proper goodbye." Morrison stepped forward with a package wrapped in plain paper. "From all of us. Something to remember what you did, what you became." Chun opened it carefully. Inside was a custom-made patch, professionally embroidered. It showed crossed rifles over a chef's hat with the words Guardian of the Gate beneath. "This is incredible," Chun said, genuinely moved. "It is who you are," Morrison said. "Both things at once. We figured you needed something that represented all of it." Chun shook hands with each SEAL, these men who had gone from dismissing him to calling him brother. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything, for seeing me, for trusting me." Torrance pulled him into a brief hug. "You ever need anything, Chun? Anything at all, you call." "Understood, Chief." "And Chun," Torrance added quietly, "stop punishing yourself. Your sister would not want that. Your father does not want that. We do not want that. You did good. Accept that and move forward." The flight to Germany passed in a blur of sleep and reflection. Chun dreamed of Lily, but for the first time in 8 years, the dreams were not nightmares. He dreamed of her at the range, cheering for him, proud and loud, and completely herself. He woke with tears on his face, but peace in his heart. 3 days later, Chun stood in the admin building at Naval Station Norfolk, officially processing into his new rating. The yeoman handling his paperwork kept glancing at his service record with barely concealed amazement. "Sir, you have the Navy and Marine Corps Medal, a combat action ribbon, and you are transferring from Culinary Specialist to Master at Arms with a Precision Marksman designation. That is one hell of a story." "It is," Chun agreed, "and it is not one I ever expected to live." The yeoman handed him his new identification. "Welcome to Norfolk, Petty Officer First Class Chun. Your training schedule starts Monday. Advanced marksmanship, tactical operations, and apparently you requested to maintain your culinary certification." "I did," Chun confirmed. "I'm both things. I want to stay both things." The yeoman smiled. "Respect, sir. Not many people have the guts to be everything they are capable of being." Chun's new quarters were in the Master at Arms barracks, a significant upgrade from his previous accommodations. Reyes was assigned to the same building, 2 floors down in the Culinary Specialist wing. They met for coffee that evening at the base exchange. "Feels strange, does not it?" Reyes said. "Being back in the States. Being safe." Chun nodded. "I keep scanning for threats. Keep calculating firing angles. My mind has not caught up to the fact that nobody, is trying to kill us here. It will take time, she said, but we have time now. That is the gift you gave us. Time. Over the next month, Chun threw himself into training. Advanced marksmanship courses where he consistently outshot instructors with decades of experience. Tactical operations classes where his combat experience gave him insight other students lacked. And twice a week, culinary courses to maintain his certification and the part of himself that found peace in feeding people. His instructors did not know what to make of him. A combat-proven shooter who could discuss the merits of different cooking techniques with equal passion. A precision marksman who insisted on morning kitchen duty. A decorated hero who seemed more comfortable with a spatula than a rifle. But Chin understood something they did not. He needed both. The cooking grounded him, reminded him that his hands could create as well as destroy, that he could nurture life as well as end it. The balance kept him whole. 6 weeks into his training, Chin received a letter forwarded from FOB Nightingale. The handwriting was shaky but determined. He opened it carefully. Petty Officer Chun, my name is Maria Torres. You do not know me, but you knew my son. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres died defending FOB Nightingale. The Marine Corps told me that you fought beside him, that you tried to save him. I wanted you to know that Michael's last letter home mentioned you. He wrote that there was a cook on base who turned out to be the finest defensive shooter he had ever seen. He said you gave him hope that people could be more than just one thing, that we all have hidden depths. I am writing to thank you for fighting beside my son, for honoring his sacrifice, and to tell you that whatever guilt you might carry, please do not carry guilt over Michael. He died doing what he loved, protecting people. I think you understand that better than most. May God bless you and keep you safe. Maria Torres. Chun read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Reyes found him in his quarters, holding the letter like it was made of glass. Chun, he handed it to her. Read this. She read in silence, then sat beside him. Oh, Chun, this is beautiful. She does not blame me, Chun said wonderingly. Her son died, and she does not blame me for not saving him. Because you did everything you could, Reyes said gently. You saved 40 others. You cannot save everyone, but you saved the ones you could. That is all anyone can ask. Chun kept the letter in his pocket for weeks, reading it whenever the guilt threatened to overwhelm him. It became a touchstone, a reminder that healing was possible, that forgiveness, even from unexpected sources, could change everything. 3 months after leaving Afghanistan, Chun stood on a firing range in Virginia, teaching a class of new Master at Arms students the fundamentals of precision shooting. He demonstrated the proper breathing technique, the trigger control, the mental discipline required for long-range accuracy. But he also taught them something his instructors had not. He taught them that being good at ending lives meant they had a responsibility to preserve lives whenever possible. That skill was not the same as eagerness, that the weight of every shot mattered. After class, a young sailor approached him. Sir, can I ask you something personal? Chun nodded. They say you have 69 confirmed combat kills. Is that true? It is true, Chun said quietly. And I remember every single one, every face I saw through the scope, every decision I made. That is the price of this skill. Does it get easier? The sailor asked. No, Chun said honestly, but you learn to carry it. You learn to balance it with the lives you save. You learn that being a protector sometimes means doing hard things. And you learn to be more than just a shooter. You find other parts of yourself that remind you why you fight. That evening, Chun cooked dinner for Reyes in the small kitchen in his quarters. Nothing fancy, just pasta and vegetables, but made with the same precision and care he brought to everything he did. They ate together, talking about their days, their futures, the lives they were building. You know what I realized today? Chun said. What? I realized that I am happy. Actually, genuinely happy. For the first time since Lily died, I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to do, being who I'm supposed to be. Reyes raised her glass. To being exactly who you are. Cook, shooter, guardian, friend. All of it. Chun clinked his glass against hers. All of it. No more hiding. No more running. Just living with the fullness of it all. That night, Chin wrote a letter to his sister, not because she could read it, but because he needed to say it. Dear Lily, I am sorry it took me 8 years to understand. You never wanted me to stop shooting because of what happened. You wanted me to honor my gifts by using them well. I think I'm finally doing that. I'm using what Dad taught me to protect people, to save lives, and I'm trying to live in a way that would make you proud. I hope, wherever you are, you can see that I am finally okay, finally whole, finally both the brother you knew and the man I needed to become. I love you. I miss you. And I promise to keep protecting people in your memory. Always. Marcus. He sealed the letter and placed it with the others he had written over the years. A growing collection of words to a sister who had never read them, but whose memory shaped everything he did. 6 months after leaving Afghanistan, Chin received new orders. Assignment to a Joint Special Operations Task Force as a precision marksman and tactical advisor. High-level work that would take him around the world. Dangerous work that would test everything he had learned. He accepted without hesitation. This was who he was now. A guardian who protected from distance. A cook who fed his teammates. A man who carried both gifts with equal dedication and equal weight. Before he deployed, Chin visited his parents in California for the first time in 8 years. His mother held him for a long time, crying and laughing simultaneously. His father gripped his shoulder with pride and understanding. They visited Lily's grave together, the 3 of them, and Chin placed the Guardian of the Gate patch on her headstone. I kept my promise, Lily, he whispered. I stopped shooting for 8 years. But then I learned that sometimes protecting people means using the skills we have. I hope you understand. I hope you're proud. His mother touched his arm. She is proud, baby. I know she is. Your father and I are proud too. You became exactly who you needed to be. On his last night home, Chun cooked dinner for his family. His mother's favorite meal, prepared with love and precision. They ate together, talking and laughing, healing wounds that had festered for nearly a decade. And Chun felt something he had not felt since he was 17 years old. Complete. Whole. At peace with all the parts of himself. The next morning, he reported to his new assignment ready to serve, ready to protect, ready to be exactly who he was. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun, Master at Arms, Precision Marksman, Culinary Specialist, Guardian. All of those things at once, integrated and unashamed. The cook who picked up a rifle. The shooter who never forgot how to feed people. The man who learned that you could carry both creation and destruction in the same hands, as long as you never forgot which one mattered more. If you connected with Chin's journey of accepting who he really was, drop a comment about what resonated most with you, or share if you have ever had to embrace a side of yourself you were afraid of. Your thoughts help us create more stories like this.